Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
At this time, I'll call the
I'll
Nash
talk to you later.
County Board of Commissioners meeting to order for August the 3rd. Having a little bit of technical problems up here this morning, but we're going to work through that as well. It is customary for the Nash County Board of Commissioners to start our meeting with a prayer by a sitting commissioner. And during this prayer, you're welcome to stand and join us in the prayer. You're welcome to use this time to have your own prayer, or you're welcome to use this time as a moment of silence at your choice. After the prayer, we'll have a pledge of allegiance to the flag led by Commissioner Outlaw. And at this time, I'd like to call on Commissioner Wells to do our invocation for us. Thank you.
Let us pray. Our Father, we come together today as Nash County Commissioners and as citizens of Nash County to attend to the business of the county. God, we come with troubled hearts because we do not understand this virus. But God, we know that you're in control. And God, we just pray for relief and that it will soon be gone. God, just be with us as we go through this meeting. May we realize we represent all of Nash County, not a certain group. And may all the things that we do and say be the things that you would have us to do and say. Just be with us to go through this meeting and keep us close to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Would you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Wells and Commissioner Outlaw. We're now on item number 4 on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from July. In July, we had 2 meetings, July the 6th, our regular meeting, and our recess meeting on July the 8th. This time, I'd entertain any corrections or additions to those minutes or a motion to approve both sets together if possible.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Minutes stand approved. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, each month at our first meeting, the Board of Commissioners has a period of time for public comments. During this time, we'd be glad to hear from any citizen that's with us that wishes to speak to the board about any matter that is not otherwise shown on the agenda. If it is on the agenda, or if it's a public hearing that you see on the agenda, we'd prefer that you wait to that particular item when we get to it. We do ask you to sign up out front prior to the meeting, but if you happen to miss the requirement to do that, we'd still be glad to hear from you. And this morning, I've had one person to sign up beforehand, a Dorothy Battle. And Ms. Battle, if you were here, we'd be glad to hear from you at this time. If you would come to the podium and state your name and address, and then proceed. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Dorothy Gibson Battle. I reside at 13343 Taylor Store Road, Nashville, NC 27856.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, and giving honor to all, understanding how blessed we are to be here today. To God be the glory. I'm here to speak about illegal firearms training by Mr. Ted Williams, reference to property parcel 304-315 Taylor Store Road, Nashville, NC 27856. Okay, I would like to begin with just less than a minute of sounds heard from my property on Saturday morning in regards to this illegal firearms training. Just bear with me just a moment.
Sure.
Okay, and never mind the rooster crowing, because they do that in response to the noise sometimes.
That's the good part.
Can you all hear?
I think so, ma'am. Yeah.
And I'm going to move it along where it won't be so long. I'm sorry. I'll move it near the end. And this is from my back porch. This is how we spend every weekend. Okay, I have sent an email out to most of the officials here today expressing my concerns and the problem my community is faced with. It has taken me 3 years to find my way here. I know I am but one person before you, but I have the determination and conviction of a warrior set out to defend the tranquility and peace of our community. I have tried to rally my neighbors, but some are afraid or have received free training. I spoke with the Austins in 2018 about it. Their son that lives behind them then came to my house and fussed me out, said I was trying to prevent a black man from making money. Knowingly, I have put myself at risk to stand up against the actions of Mr. Ted Williams' yard dog firearms training. But the loss of the sanctuary of my home and its peaceful environment compels me to stand. We cannot relax on the porch, enjoy our outdoor hobbies, or go home. Why? Because we are at home. Mr. Williams has left his home and brought his gunfire and sounds of terror to us illegally, destroying our peaceful mode of life. Sometimes the dogs howl, the cows bellow, and the roosters crow at the noise. He or someone shoots 15 to 20+ hours per week. Some weeks it's daily, but always Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 5 to 8 hours without ceasing. There is no escape from the sound of all types of weapons being fired and explosions. I believe in the power of civil law for the good of all citizens to live in harmony, safety, and peace. Mr. Williams has admitted in an email that he trains at this site commercially for recreation and trains judges, lawyers, and law enforcement free of charge. He has also done the same thing on Highway 58 in 2015. Mr. Williams has no legal permit for a gun training or shooting range. Yet he has used this site illegally since 2017 as he desires. I'm highly upset, but even more focused and committed to ending Mr. Williams' illegal shooting range. I put aside all fear to go where I must go, to write and speak to whom I must speak, to bring an end to this activity. I trust this governing body will investigate and restore what is right by law. Thank you for your support and allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you, Ms. Battle.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wish to speak before the board this morning? All right, Mr. Battle, what we normally do is not respond to a public comment till we gather information. I know we have a lot of information in your case. We will ask the staff to report back to the board where we are within the next few days, and then staff will be in touch with you. Thank you for being here this morning.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Belfield, is that your words about this item or another item?
No.
Okay.
I'm not, I don't respond to.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
I just,
It
at this
it's
point,
timeless, I
as
guess.
we ending public comments,
Yes,
I
sir.
just want to make a statement about a great American that was eulogized and over this past weekend, I believe it was on Friday, John Lewis.
You're welcome to have your time for public comment, sir. Please proceed.
In my opinion, he was, and a lot of people on both sides of the aisle in Congress, he served almost 30, he was in his 34th year. And I had a lot of respect for him going all the way back. I can remember in the Civil Rights March for voting rights across the bridge of Selma, how bad he was beaten, almost lost his life. But he kept moving, and I just believe it was the work of the Lord that propelled him to do the things that he was able to do. And he was a type of person, he believed in nonviolence. He was, excuse me, he was a type of person that also believed in working across the aisles with both Democrats and Republicans. And you saw both Democrats and Republicans at his memorial service.
Indeed.
And saw 3 presidents speak and from both parties, and I think that saves a lot. In my opinion, he was a great American. And I would just like for us, close out my comments on this by just having a moment of silent prayer in memory, and you can say in honor too, of John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, who served this country well and was respected.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. I think this board would be honored to follow your request and have that moment of silence. I did get a chance to watch some of the news reports on Mr. Lewis. Learned a lot about him after he died. Knew some about him, but like many cases, we become fascinated with people sometimes too late in life. But I did enjoy what I saw and what I read about him. He was a unique individual. And I guess one of the things that made it stand out so much is the period of time we're currently in and what we're going through as a nation and the unrest that we have. It seems like we have times like this and we lose the icons that just didn't believe in what we're looking at today. So I appreciate you bringing that up this morning, and we'll honor that now with a moment of silence, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Say, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Belfield, I was a little bit, thought you were going to speak about public comments. The reason I asked you where you were going, because, you know, we try not to do that, and I
No, I
apologize.
just thought it was appropriate at the end of public comments to
Absolutely.
recognize.
Right. Okay, with that said, we'll move on to item number 6, economic development, and I will call on Andy Hagee to introduce us to a gentleman he has with us this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just a few comments, remarks before I introduce our guest. Nash County is excited to announce today to be a member of the Research Triangle Regional Partnership. Can I take this off?
It's fine with me, sir.
The county's evolved over the years into an advanced manufacturing and pharmaceutical powerhouse, which makes it an ideal fit for the Research Triangle region. The coronavirus has ignited new industrial market opportunities, and Nash is beginning to catch the eye of developers and e-commerce businesses. The county's proximity between Research Triangle and I-95 corridor, which offers access to major markets from New York to Miami, now stands out as an increasingly important link to the supply chain for food and pharmaceuticals. This is why it's an excellent time for Nash County to join forces with RTRP and help bring jobs and capital investment to our region. So now I would like to introduce Ryan Combs, Executive Director of the Research Triangle Regional Partnership. And Ryan, I'll let you introduce your staff and our other guests. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Welcome, Mr. Combs.
Mr. Chairman, how are you today?
Been a while since I've seen you.
Yes, sir. Good to see you,
went
and
to
good to
visit
see
you.
everyone this morning.
Time, yes, sir.
As Andy mentioned, my name is Ryan Combs. I'm the Executive Director of the Research Triangle Regional Partnership. I have with me a Nash County native, Ashley Warren. She's our marketing coordinator, so we're thrilled and excited to be here. I do want to apologize in advance. I get really excited when I start talking, and I get ahead of myself, so I'll try to keep myself to my
We enjoy
slides here.
people that like what they're doing,
I
sir.
love my
You don't-
job. I can
Don't need to
promise you
feel
that.
embarrassed
So-
about that.
As Andy was saying, let's see. All right, somebody may have to help me here. Come on now. There we go. All right. So the Research Triangle Regional Partnership, we're now with Nash County, we're a 12-county regional economic development organization. Our mission is really quite simple. Our mission is to go out and promote the Triangle region and globally, basically, and market and build brand recognition for the Triangle. Traditionally, the way the partnership was created about 20 years ago, a group of business leaders in Wake and Durham saw that Wake and Durham were actually competing and fighting for projects. And they said, this is just not a good way to look. A business owner would come in and Wake County would take them around Wake County, and then they'd drive them to Durham County line and drop them off, and Durham County would pick them up. You don't know what each other is saying. We are strong as a region when you look at all the assets we have regionally, and that's what sells. And so other counties started getting involved. We grew to about 14 counties. And then in 2014, when the state of North Carolina created the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, they eliminated all regional partnership funding, and so that hurt us quite a bit. We shrunk in size because some counties could no longer pay when we had to up the dues. And so I came on board 3 years ago. We've totally changed the way the RTRP works. Previously, when I say working projects, if a company was interested in the region, they would come to town. You have people like Andy that would actually work the project. You have EDP&C, and then you'd have the RTRP, and our board looked at it and said, you know what, we don't need another organization that's getting involved with actually working a project once it's been announced. What we really need is somebody to just go out and market our region externally and get people interested in North Carolina, in the Research Triangle region, and so that's really what we focus our efforts on at the RTRP. Our mission is really driven by our executive committee. So we have a board of about 50 people, and then we have an executive committee that is a smaller group of that, and then our EDAC, which is our Economic Development Advisory Committee. The advisory committee are our economic developers from the 12 counties, and so I take my marching orders from the economic developers and from the executive and make sure that, to ensure that we're doing what the board wants us to be doing. One thing I'm really proud of is I would bet we are probably work the closest with the Biotech Center and EDP&C of any regional organization in the state. Usually when I bring somebody in, the first stop, if it's a biotech type company, our first stop is the Biotech Center. It's a great asset that we have for the state. I've partnered with the Biotech Center in events in Boston and Belgium. And then EDP&C, we just did a big reception in Paris last summer during the Paris Air Show. I talked to EDP&C a couple times a week, and we also included EDP&Cs. They have 2 representatives in Europe. We worked with them when we held meetings in France last fall. We worked very closely with them as well. And so really what I was saying earlier is, I mean, not only EDP&C and the Biotech Center, but the RTRP, we're really trying to put our region on the map. Traditionally, North Carolina, you know, if you're from North Carolina, you know how we were all raised, that you don't talk about yourself. Well, we've done a horrible job talking about ourselves internationally. It's like somebody told me, who's going to invest in a place they'd never heard about? So when I first started traveling, especially internationally, I would say we're between Washington, D.C. and Atlanta. And some people in Europe told me, you really need to start saying we're between New York and Orlando, because everybody in Europe knows where Orlando and New York City is. And so we're really trying to build our brand there. And working side by side with EDP&C and the Biotech Center to leverage our resources. One of the things that we're really working on is building a strong partnership with France, especially the Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region of France. That's where Lyon is. It's the second largest city in France. It's also the second largest region in France for medtech and biotech. They have about 900 biotech companies there. And the picture you're looking at on the screen is the CEO, chairman and CEO of bioMérieux, Alexander Mérieux. We hosted a reception for him in Lyon. He just did about a $70 million expansion to his facility in Durham. They have about 1,200 employees there. And we had about 100 companies come to this reception because they wanted to get in front of Alexander Mérieux. And so it was a really good opportunity for us to tell our story of the Triangle. And if you see in the picture, well, you can't tell who's who, but Laura Rowley from the Biotech Center there, and Archie, who's one of the European reps from EDP&C, is there as well. So we're working very closely together. We have hosted numerous delegations. The picture on the left is the French ambassador to the U.S. We hosted him in early March, right before the COVID started, and this was the first time a French ambassador had been to the Triangle in 17 years. The picture in the top right, that is the UK's Trade Commissioner. We hosted a luncheon for him in February, and then in the bottom right is the Belgian ambassador to the U.S. It's so vital and important to create these relationships and get these ambassadors going back talking about our region and our state. And by far the number one visitor I've had so far, this is the Irish ambassador to the United States. I introduced him to what tailgating is. Bojangles, fried chicken, and sweet tea. So he had a great trip to North Carolina, and we had a luncheon for him in Durham at the Bulls ballpark. But the reason I show you things like this is we've worked really hard to engage Ireland. They have their economic development organization is called Enterprise Ireland. They want to help Irish companies expand to the U.S. We've worked very closely with their offices in New York and Boston. And just last week, I received an email introducing me to a CEO and founder of a company saying that they're looking expansion plans for the U.S. market. And so this is just a perfect example of why personal relationships are so important. And so this is what we really spend a lot of time and energy on is building relationships with other folks that can help us grow. This is an example of foreign direct investment into the United States in 2019. As you can see, there was $260 billion of FDIs, what they call foreign direct investment into the U.S. And while a lot of that was mergers and acquisitions, there was $7.8 billion of greenfield investment. The thing I wanted to show you in this was while we concentrate a lot, 60% of that investment came from Europe. And but the thing I want you to look at is if you look at 2008, we were about 260 billion, and then all the way to 2014, 260 billion. And you saw how it spiked and then it went back down, and we're at 260 billion again in 2019. That number's only going to go back up. Every company that we've ever talked to, the number one market they want is the United States. They want to be here. And I had a really interesting conversation with a guy that runs the Polish Invest, or he's our U.S. Commercial Service representative in Poland. He said the countries that are benefiting today are the ones that invested in 2008 when all the other states pulled out. And so we're doubling down our efforts to build relationships in Europe, get North Carolina and the Triangle region's brand known in Europe, so when the investments do begin to go up, we're going to benefit greatly from that. This is Jim Blair. He's a site selection consultant out of Atlanta, but he ran Georgia's international office for over 10 years, and you can see in the bottom of his quote, he says that successful economic development organizations will gear up to improve their ability to promote themselves, to welcome, communicate with, and negotiate with international executives. And that's exactly what we're doing. One of the things that we're really excited about, I was telling you earlier about our relationship with France. A lot of countries are overlooking France right now, and they're really starting to pop as a country, especially in the tech scene. And the French government created something called La French Tech, and it's a way for the French to promote and grow French tech startups. The reason this is important to us is they also have international hubs for La French Tech, so when French companies grow and expand, they have connections to other markets. So right now, the only markets that were in the United States were New York, Boston, Austin, and LA. We were just classified. We worked really hard with the French expat community in the Triangle to lobby to get this, and so now when the French tech companies looking at the United States, we'll be on their radar as well. And then one of the last things I'll talk about for international, oops, too far. We've just signed a contract with Oxon, which is a European lead generation firm. The gentleman in the far right corner has been working with us in the United States for the last year, but he's actually a French citizen, and he did economic development in France for 20 years. Oxon, he's going to go work for Oxon, but be our representative in Europe. And they have offices in France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and the UK. And so especially with COVID right now, us not being able to travel, having somebody boots on the ground that can tell our story in Europe is really impressive and good for us. And then Thomas is going to coordinate with EDP&C. So EDP&C's foreign offices in Europe, they have one in Italy and one was in Germany, but is getting ready to move to Belgium, so Thomas will be able to go all over Western Europe for us and meet with companies while we're there. And one of the other things that Thomas has been working on that we're going to continue working on is creating an international soft landing program. So a lot of the larger cities in the U.S. have these programs where when an international company is ready to look at the U.S. market, they actually can go into an Atlanta or Boston, and the counties or the cities will pay to have basically a free place for them to come and work for maybe a couple of months. And so we're working on putting a program like that similar together to invite international startups to come and stay here in North Carolina. I mentioned earlier the site selection consultants. I didn't know what a site selection consultant was before I started this job, but basically I read an article in the Wall Street Journal that 80% of all companies will use some type of site influencer to help them decide where they want to relocate or expand. And so site consultants wield a lot of power with companies to tell companies where they think they should go. And so that was one of the priorities when I first started working at the RTRP, was they wanted us to increase our relationships with site consultants. And so the pictures you're looking at, we've flown site consultants in. Jim Blair was one of the ones I mentioned just previously. We flew him in, spent a couple days here. These are a couple of our site consultant fly-ins that we partnered with a group called Consultant Connect. And these people are folks out of New York, Boston, Chicago, LA, Atlanta. A lot of them have never even been to our market before. And so being able to bring them in and show off some of the strengths of our region is really important. And Durham just landed a huge project from California, and the person that was working the project was in on one of these site consultant fly-ins, so it works. And then we also, one of the other things we do at the RTRP is we do out-of-market visits. So we go to places like New York, Boston, Chicago, where a lot of the site selection consultants are. The pictures here, we were in Atlanta in February and did a lunch for site consultants and foreign consulates. And we had one of the vice presidents of Delta Airlines speak to the group about why the Triangle is the #1 growing market for Delta. So it's really powerful for somebody like, from a Delta perspective, to get up and talk. And Delta's been really supportive of us. They flew all of our economic developers down to Atlanta. We also go to Greenville once a year. There's actually a large concentration of folks in Greenville, South Carolina. And then this is something you may be interested in. In January 2021, we're going to do 2 events in our rural counties where we bring site consultants in for elected officials to meet with them, and they're going to actually go through projects and show how counties, the do's and don'ts of how communities can win projects. It'll be a really good opportunity to learn firsthand what they look for when they're trying to find a location. And then since COVID, obviously, we've had to transition just like everybody else, because our model before was to go out and build relationships and bring people here. So we've had to transition to do a lot of Zoom calls during COVID. This is one of our calls with our economic developers. This was with the 2 European reps for EDP&C. And we've also held numerous calls with European economic development organizations to keep in touch. And we've also, this spring, we've begun engaging with Japan. We've translated our website into Japanese, and next week we have a call with Japanese investors who are looking for places other than Silicon Valley to begin investing in. So it's a good opportunity there. We've done Zoom calls with site consultants. This is Mina Hall out of Chicago, just giving us updates on what they're seeing on project flow. And then this week we've got another one, Amy Gerber out of Atlanta, will be speaking to our EDAC committee as well. So we're trying to stay in touch with all of our site selection consultants. And one of the other things I'm really excited about is we're getting ready to launch a digital marketing campaign. It's a 6-month campaign, and it's targeting business executives. We're going to concentrate our efforts in the Northeast and California. You're already hearing a lot about a lot of the things happening in the Northeast where companies are looking at relocating, and I think we can really capitalize on that. 2 more things that we're really working hard on. One is developing an ag tech cluster for the Triangle region. We have a lot of agriculture technology companies with NC State's College of Ag and Life Sciences, the Plant Science Initiative, BASF, Bayer, Syngenta, all of those big companies. What we're seeing now is a lot of these smaller companies are popping up and growing, and we're trying to capitalize on that to compete with St. Louis. And then our last thing, I think, which would be really interesting for Nash County, is one of the buzzwords right now in economic development is gene and cell therapy. We're seeing a lot of these gene and cell therapy companies when it comes time to manufacture. Sanford just picked up one, about a 75,000 square foot building to manufacture. And so we've worked hard with the Biotech Center to develop marketing materials to try to help us capture some more of those manufacturers, and we're going to start promoting this area as a gene and cell therapy manufacturing hub as well. I believe that's the end of my presentations, but we're really excited to have Nash County back, and I'm looking forward to working with everybody. So, thank you.
Any questions from commissioners of Mr. Combs this morning?
Yes, I have some.
Mr. Belfield?
I was just reading there, basically, what you're gonna do is market the region. You're gonna do that by individual counties. I know some counties have more resources than others and may be more attractive to economic development than others. So, how are you gonna handle that as it relates to each one of, I believe you said 12 counties?
Yes, sir.
How are you gonna handle that with
Well, so when I go out,
some of them having less resources
Right.
than others?
so that is why the region, you can't do anything better than have a regional partnership. So with the resources that y'all are giving us, you're going to tie in, so Nash County, every county pays 30 cents per capita. So you're going to benefit greatly from we're spending, I don't even want to tell you the amount of money we're getting ready to spend on marketing in the Northeast. When we talk about the Triangle region, we talk in broad terms. We talk about quality of life. We talk about land availability. We talk about all the things that could really happen in all 12 of our counties. And then it's up to the individual like Andy. Will we push the message out? We want to push people back to the website where the counties can promote themselves. But it's not me going to Boston and just talking about Raleigh or Durham. Every single one of our 12 counties is just as important to us. And so I'm ensuring that we're talking in broad terms. But, you know, there's some things in economic development that you can't control. When a company tells you we want to be within 20 miles of an airport, 20 minutes of a major university. I mean, that's a lot of times in economic development, that's what's so frustrating for folks is because they don't realize that the company's basically telling you where they want to go. But like I said, our job is to make sure we put Nash County and our Research Triangle region on the map. And that's something that, like I said earlier, we have done a horrible job of as a state in the past. And so that's what we're trying to change right now.
Yeah, I think it can work well if it's done with cooperation. Now, I was in Ohio 2 years ago, and they have a 17 county regional economic, because they don't just market, they actually deal with the projects and everything. But one thing that they showed us, that every county, those 17 counties, gets something, and they're all pleased working together. There's no monopoly there. And so I think it can work well if we work it. Yes. Now, I read last year in the paper where Orange County pulled out of the Triangle Economic Development because they said they weren't getting their fair share. Wake County and Durham were basically getting everything, so they decided they're going to go it on their own. I have my doubts how successful they can be sitting right there under those two counties, but that's what they're going to try to do. I haven't heard that they made any changes since they made that decision. Now, you may know.
Orange County pulled out of the partnership before we even changed what RTRP was doing.
I understand that.
So
I understand that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, and the thing is that's why we have board, that's why we have an executive committee, and that's why we have an EDAC. Mm-hmm. And I stand by my statement that next year you can judge me on how I've done over the past year running the organization to ensure that Nash County is getting a return on the investment. And you know, I'll tell you one thing that happened right when I became executive director, Harnett County pulled out. And a year later, they came back because they heard we were doing different stuff now. And I think you'll be proud and excited about the work we're doing. We're trying to complement what Nash County's doing. I'm not here to say that I'm the answer to everything, but we work really hard to ensure that we're doing the work that y'all want us to do.
No, I wouldn't expect you to do everything. There's 12 counties with their board members, whoever's on your board of directors, they're gonna have to present some contribution. They're gonna have to give some, and other than just going to the meeting with a hat in their hand. They know what works best in their county. They know what resources they have, and they got to pass that on.
Yes, sir.
So it can be marketed.
Yes, sir.
I think it can be a success. I've seen it, and like I say, I was impressed with what was going on there in Ohio, because they had a two-part thing, marketing as well as doing the project.
Yes, sir.
Other comments from board members?
Just a quick question. Does
Mr. Outlaw?
Nash County have any representation on your board?
Yes, sir, they will. So you'll have 3 members on the big board. I believe Chairman Davis is going to serve on the executive committee, and then Andy will serve on the EDAC committee. So you will have representation, yes, sir.
Actually, I think we have appointments later on in our agenda.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry.
Two.
Other board members? Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, how you doing?
You talked a lot about the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, but you never mentioned the Department of Commerce. How do y'all interact with the Department of Commerce? I know the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina is contracted by the Department of Commerce, but
Right.
you didn't mention it. What kind of relationship?
Oh, we've got a great, Secretary Copeland's traveled with us multiple times to different places. But basically what happens is EDP&C works the project, and when it comes time to talk incentives, that's when it's handed over to the Department of Commerce. And so we're not going to be in at that level. What most times happens is if we have a project like the one I mentioned earlier from California, we'll be called in if one of the counties wants us to assist, we're happy to assist. But there's just a lot of duplicating efforts that they wanted to ensure when they kind of rebranded the RTRP, that we weren't stepping on the toes of EDP&C and the local county developers. I think there was a lot of that going on in the past. And
So you're expected to go through them?
Yes.
That's what they?
Yes.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you. That's all.
Well, we greatly appreciate you being here today. You are quite aware that we're on a new venture ourselves in Nash County, have
Yes,
our own economic development department now, something we hadn't done in a number of years, but we look forward to you helping us make that very successful.
Well, thank you.
Our board is somewhat under the gun to make this work. We intend to make it work, and any help you can give us, and Ashley as well, we would greatly appreciate it.
I look forward to working with each of you. Thank you all
Thank
so much
you.
for the time.
Look forward to
Thank you.
working with you.
All right.
Next item on the agenda would be item number 7, and it would be a bi-monthly update from Jonathan Boone on our detention facility, and just give us an update of where we are today. Mr. Boone? Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Thinking that's going to be a tough act to follow, so
Different subject matter.
give a little grace. If you're talking about the detention facility, we're nearly exciting. But do have a few things to share with you. I believe I was last with you for a report back in June, and I just want to bring you up to speed on where we are at the detention facility. So first, just remind you, we started out early last fiscal year with funding set aside for capital improvements at the detention facility, roughly $550,000. We supplemented those funds in this spring, in March of 2020, with another $500,000. And then we have one new capital project we've added to our list of projects for FY21, and that is the modernization of the elevator at the sheriff's office. And that was a project that we had programmed in FY 2020, and because of other projects underway, we delayed to this fiscal year. You may recall from previous reports, I provide you with a breakdown of actual expenses and funds that have been committed for capital projects at the detention facility. I've not included previous months, but I did provide you an update for this report. As you can see, of that roughly $1,050,000 that was set aside for improvements, we have spent or committed just over $1 million. You can see we spent to date $580,000. We've got another $424,000 encumbered. Majority of that money is related to the security system enhancements. You probably recall that project. Work in the east-west and former juvenile section at the facility, replacement of the cooler freezer, and replacement of a dishwasher in the kitchen that the sheriff's office wanted to replace. But again, of that $1,050,000, we have spent or committed just over $1 million, $1,005,000. In terms of areas where we focused our attention since my last report in June, you can see there are 6 items there on the list. We've continued to focus on a few items that date back to the semi-annual inspection we had in December. The items that has required the most work and we continue to work on is some energy recovery units related to the HVAC system on the roof of the facility. Continuing to work through those repairs. We've made continued some renovations over at the sheriff's office with the Drake Street entrance to the sheriff's office. Continuing our efforts in the former juvenile section and east-west blocks at the jail. Again, I mentioned the cooler freezer replacement, the dishwasher replacement, and then a number of other miscellaneous projects that we've been working on. As far as the Drake Street entrance, you may remember some of these pictures from the report in June. Again, this is the primary entrance into the rear of the sheriff's office, so the public entrance to the office. And we'd repainted that area. And you'll see in this picture, there was some VCT tile on the floor there that we've replaced. You'll see that in the picture to the left. And you can see in the right where that material has been removed. I'll show you a picture in just a second. We basically replaced that with an epoxy floor covering. And the picture in the middle, just to know, we've had some issues with water intrusion on this side of the facility because of the lack of the awning. We have ordered an awning and expect that to be installed this month. So I hope to have a picture of that enhancement in my report 2 months from now. This is the after photo just showing the flooring repair through the facility. Again, we removed that VCT tile and the mastic that was there and replaced that with an epoxy floor covering. We expect we'll get a long service life out of that. Maintenance of that should be a lot easier for staff and really made a positive improvement for the entrance to the sheriff's office. I think that turned out well. Mentioned the work on the west side of the facility in former juvenile and east-west block. This shows some of the work in progress. Some of the pictures had been removed. You see where a shower had been removed. This is a little bit closer picture by the plumbing closet. This was a combination sink commode here that had been removed. And here we have one of the painters working on preparing the bar section in that area for repainting. Here's some work. I did not have the pictures from last week in this presentation, but have some similar to share with you. This is just work in progress. We replaced the showers. There were 2 showers in that day room area. You can see one here. It's an open section to the ceiling. We can replace that. At the request of the sheriff's office, we've added some expanded metal to the front of each of those cells. So the only access to the inmates when the cells enclose will be through the pass-through doors. You can see that here, been installed. And again, this is the other shower that we installed in that area. East-west block, similar work. You may remember seeing some pictures of some corrosion, some rust on some of those bars. This is a picture here where that has been removed. This is inside one of the cells, some of the prep work here. And again, this is all work in progress with cleaning the bars. So again, that section with the corroded metal has been repaired. This is now the interior, although there's some additional work been done here on the back side of the cell where the combination sink commode was located. We basically repaired the rear wall, added a steel plate, reinforced that area, and reinstalled the fixture. And this is painting outside in the hall where the officers, when doing their rounds, would pass through. All this area has been cleaned, any corrosion removed, repaired, areas repainted. That work was actually completed last week, and looks really night and day from where we were to where we are today. Some more pictures after showing that day room area. You can actually see, maybe hard to pick up here, the suspended metal again was added to these cells also in these 2 blocks. You can see where that's been painted, repainted all the fixtures inside the room, tables, et cetera. The sheriff's office has been in contact with a maintenance company to come in and refinish terrazzo floors. That's really the last thing to be done in this section. The area could be occupied today, but we would like to get that work done before they bring inmates back into this area. This is, again, one of the new showers, similar to the ones you saw in I showed you in the former juvenile section. And again, this is one of the hallways outside of the east-west block, again, where the officers would pass through when doing their shift rounds. Other improvements, mentioned the security system enhancements. As of the end of June, that work was, I would say, 99% complete. We've got a couple of cameras that needed to be replaced. Those are on order. We're waiting for those to be delivered and reinstalled, but the system is functional. Sheriff's Office has been using that since June, and expect final payout on that project by the middle of this month. And again, just my perception of those improvements is night and day improvement. I'd be interested for you to hear from the Sheriff's Office in terms of their take, but it's a night and day from the technology that the Sheriff's Office had in place prior to this enhancement. In terms of the clarity of the images, the ability to control the camera, zoom, see exactly what's going on inside the jail in the day room area, in the exercise yard, really a significant improvement. Mentioned the cooler freezer. You recall this is from the bid document just showing the new unit. And again, that project was advertised in the spring. We received bids in April. We awarded the contract to a vendor out of Myrtle Beach. At that time, we issued a purchase order in May. We started work. Had to order and fabricate that unit. They started work on the installation the week of the 29th, trying to get most of that work done before July 4th. The unit has been placed in service. We've had some nagging issues with the unit in terms of some wiring from the manufacturer. We've had the vendor back a couple of times. I'm waiting for those issues to be resolved and a couple of other minor punch list items before we pay for that work. But again, I think Sheriff's Office would agree, the new unit that we have in place is night and day above and beyond what we had in place prior to this project. So I think they're well pleased with the work that's been done. If we can get these items we have on the punch list resolved, we can move beyond that and focus on other items over at the jail. Here's a photo here of the exterior door, and not have any interior pictures to share with you, but again, significant improvement. As far as most of our work moving forward, we'll, again, wrapping up the work on the west side of the facility. We've got some other minor projects that we want to undertake, some painting in the facility, or the facility's not been painted in a while, or where inmate labor was used prior. We'd like to get a contract painter in to do some work. But really moving forward, most of our energy is going to be focused on the major capital project that the commissioners had funded as far as the renovation and expansion of the facility. We've been working with Mosley Architects. Certainly you will recall the presentation on the jail needs assessment. Project coordination team was formed to work with Mosley Architects on that project. We've met 3 times so far, twice in June, once late this month. We had a little break there in the middle due to some COVID-related issues. But we've really been focusing on the kind of conceptual plan development, really trying to crystallize what it is we intend to do at the jail. We'll be wrapping up that phase here in the next few weeks. We're really probably a couple of weeks behind schedule. Again, we had a break earlier in July because of some COVID-related issues, but kind of finalizing what it is we want to do, and then Mosley will move into the design development phase. But we focused on the mechanical systems at the jail, security related improvements, and then again that expansion project to the rear of the facility. So as far as our schedule, this is the schedule that Mosley had committed to. We're committed to accelerating this schedule. And again, we're working on that, recognizing that COVID creates some challenges both from a staff perspective and also with the section that we'll be working with the Department of Health and Human Safety, with the state, due to the many issues that they're faced with nursing homes and hospitals. But again, we should be wrapping up the schematic design you'll see there. We were targeting June 29th. We're a little bit behind on our efforts there. We're hoping to, we identified a couple of issues at our last meeting we intend to discuss with the town of Nashville. And then again, finalize our conceptual plan for that addition behind the jail. The last portion of the year into the first part of next year has been set aside for design development and preparation and approval of construction documents. So we're targeting a early April timeframe for bidding the project and then start construction in the summer, almost the beginning of FY '22. But again, we're firmly committed to try to move this project forward as quickly as we can. But I feel like we're making good progress given the many issues that we have in front of us. With that said, that concludes my presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board of Mr. Boone?
What takes so long? I mean, I see these dates here, and a design development is going to take from August to November, then construction documents takes from October to April of next year. I mean, is this normal?
Well, again, I think it recognizes the many challenges. This is not, even though I was not here for the courthouse, a project like a jail, there's many nuances associated with jail. It's much more complicated than just building a building. And then the other thing I would say is I believe Mosley Architect is likely taking the approach of under promise and over deliver. And we're certainly committed to help them along into over delivering on the schedule. But again, we do certainly one thing that is outside of our control, and that will be review and approval by the state. Again, we're dealing with a section and with the many challenges that we have, the state is facing, the nation is facing related to COVID-19. They are heavily engaged with dealing with nursing homes and hospitals, but that's the same section that Mosley Architects will need to interface with to get our plans reviewed and approved. But we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that we're not the holdup on the process.
Other questions or comments? Commissioner Combs, I'll just add to what Mr. Boone said. Due to the challenges we are facing, as we all know, our population is down considerably, so we're getting a little bit of help in that regard as we take a little bit longer to probably get it built because of the same issue. So hopefully those two will balance themselves out. Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. The freezer that we had a wiring issue, everything's fine with that now?
Correct. They had, apparently from the manufacturer, there was a wiring issue with the defrosters in the freezer. They've since corrected that, and I expect we'll likely have a claim with Lance Restaurant Equipment and Valley Equipment Systems. But that issue, to my understanding, has been resolved.
The issue that arose over a year ago about locks and the age of the locks and whether they were sufficient, have we got it? Are all the locks okay now?
That's really an issue that I have left to the sheriff's office because that's two vendors that they manage, Georgia Detention and Johnson Controls. So it's my understanding they are more comfortable with the locking systems in Juvenile and East-West, and we may have the ability to cannibalize some of the equipment in the North-South block, which, as you know, we've abandoned if parts are needed to repair those locks. I believe they feel better about those systems, but again, that is an issue that I have left to the sheriff's office to address and resolve.
The pictures of East-West and Juvenile really do look good, and you know, that was a touch-and-go issue on whether we were going to renovate those areas. How do you feel about the resulting renovations? What kind of life do you think they now have as a result of those renovations?
I'm pleased with the outcome of the work. I think that has resulted in significant improvements in those areas if you look at where we were to where we are today. And I would say the life of those improvements is largely going to be a function of how well those areas are maintained. Again, a lot of the rust and corrosion has been removed, repaired. We've reinforced the walls in the plumbing closets adjacent to the sink commode, to the showers, to the fixtures in the individual cells. Repainted all the cells. Every surface has been touched. We've added the expanded metal, which should make for a safer environment for the officers should they enter into the day room areas. It's yet to be seen how those areas will actually be utilized. As I understand it, the former juvenile area, the thought would be is that would be an area to that would be associated with dorms 4 and 5, where they're currently housing females when they have females, or one of the dorms actually been used as an area to isolate inmates that may have concerns about COVID-19. But again, it will largely be a function of how well those areas are maintained moving forward. But certainly, I anticipate those improvements will outlast my career with the county.
I know that we got approval from the state for 4 and 5 use. Have we gotten approval for the juvenile and east-west yet?
No, so that will be the next step, is to try to arrange for an inspection of those 3 areas so that they can be placed back into service.
And the plan for north-south, my last question, is still to mothball that for the time being?
I would say that as part of our work on the expansion renovation project, we have revisited that conversation because of some concepts that Mosley Architects has brought forward based on input from the sheriff's office about possibly how to implement some changes on the west side of the facility to accommodate booking into the facility. So there is potentially a scenario where we would mothball a portion of the north-south block and renovate a number of cells that remain. But that has not been finalized, but that is one alternative that we are currently evaluating.
Thank you. No further questions.
Yes, sir. Any other comment, questions from commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Boone.
Thank you.
As we said, in June, we went to a bi-monthly report. We also said that we would contact the sheriff every other month to see if he wanted to do a report. I did talk to the sheriff last week and told him, reminded him what we were doing. He said to just report that everything in operations was going fine at the current time, and he really didn't see the need or didn't need to report other than everything was greatly improved, and they were working fine, had a lot of things underway, changes they're making there, but for the most part, seem to be going pretty well. Major Moore, I see you in the audience. I know that's not under your purview. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, sir. Yes, sir. Everything as we expected at the time, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, that was item number 7. We will move into our public hearings at this time. Item number 8 is a quasi-judicial public hearing on conditional use rezoning request. And I will call on our planning director, Adam Tyson, at this time to make this presentation. Good morning, sir.
This request is somewhat complex in that it has 3 aspects. It's a conditional use rezoning, so we're going to be talking about changing the zoning classification of the property. Because it's a conditional use rezoning, it has to be tied to a proposed site plan, which in this case is a subdivision sketch plan. And then that subdivision sketch plan has a waiver request attached to it. So there are 3 different aspects, and I'll try to walk you through that in as simply a manner as possible. This is a survey of the subject property. It's 68.88 acres owned by the C.T. Williams Corporation, located on the north side of Stony Hill Church Road in the R40 zoning district. And so on the left side of the screen is an aerial photo with the 68.88 acres outlined in red. And on the right side of your screen is a zoning map, and you'll see it's in that green R40 district that covers most of the area out there. The property is located northeast of the town of Bailey in the area known as the Green Pond community, and it's across Stony Hill Church Road from the recently developed phases 1 and 2 of the Williams Ridge subdivision. You'll recall that the board rezoned this tract, having a little bit of trouble with the mouse on this wet podium, but this tract that's in kind of an orangish color right here to R30 prior to the recording of phases 1 and 2 of the Williams Ridge subdivision, which is 20 lots around the perimeter of that property. The site that we're considering today is mostly undeveloped. It's been previously used for agricultural crop production, and there is one existing dwelling at 3326 Stony Hill Church Road. We'll talk about the rezoning request itself first. The property owner has submitted this request in order to rezone the property from R40, shown in green, to RA30 CU, single-family residential conditional use, specifically for the development of the Williams Grove subdivision. This zone is primarily intended to accommodate low-density, single-family detached dwellings on large lots. There would be 5 primary substantial impacts on the property as a result of this rezoning if it were approved. Number 1, and most obviously, the residential density would increase. It would reduce the required minimum lot area from 40,000 square feet per lot to 30,000 square feet per lot, which would allow the developer to create about 1/3 more lots than he could under the current zoning jurisdiction. There are 9 land uses. If we refer to the table of permitted uses, the 9 highlighted in yellow are currently permitted in the R40 zoning district, but would no longer be permitted under the proposed RA30. Most notably, double-wide Class A manufactured homes are permitted under the current zoning district and would no longer be permitted. The other land uses are rural family occupations, nursing and convalescent homes, solar farms, solid waste disposal collection sites, water treatment plants, horse shows, and/or turkey shoots. And so the proposed rezoning is more restrictive in terms of permitted uses than the current zoning district. The subject property, as I stated earlier, because this is a conditional use permit, can only be developed in accordance with an approved site plan, which in this case is the major subdivision sketch plan for the Williams Grove subdivision. And so the developer, if approved, would be required to develop it substantially in accordance with that plan, and we'll examine the details of that plan in just a second. The subject property would no longer be eligible to be subdivided using the cluster development option because that plan does not utilize the cluster option. And due to the conditional nature of this rezoning, the board does have the opportunity to attach reasonable site-specific conditions that would address the development's compatibility with the surrounding properties and its compliance with the ordinance. And as we go through the motions, I will highlight a few suggested conditions that have been put forth by both the TRC and the planning board. You'll recall that there have been 2 recent rezoning requests that include this subject property back on December 2. The board denied a request to expand this RA30 zoning district down here in the orange to include the subject property as well as 2 other adjacent properties. At the time, the board determined that the request was premature until the Williams Ridge subdivision located on the south side of the road down here was further developed in order to demonstrate the compatibility of that RA30 zoning district before it was further expanded. Then on June 1st, the Board of Commissioners denied a request to rezone this tract to a general RA20 zoning district due to a determination that it would be unreasonable spot zoning because of the reduced minimum lot size. The request you have before you today is more moderate in several ways than both of the 2 previously denied requests because the lot sizes would be larger and there is a site plan that the developer would have to follow. Whenever we look at a rezoning, we consider 2 tools, the land development plan and concerns about spot zoning. The land development plan designates the property as suburban growth area, which you can see in this map right here. It's uniformly suburban growth area. That area, the plan supports rezoning to RA30 where public water service is available and where the soil conditions are suitable to accommodate the installation of on-site septic systems. As we've discussed many times, there is Nash County Public Water Service via a 4-inch water line that runs along Stony Hill Church Road, and the Public Utilities Department has already determined that there is plenty of capacity to accommodate this residential development. The soil conditions are generally sandy, well-drained, and favorable for on-site septic systems, and this higher density residential development will help to accommodate the significant residential growth that the plan foresees for this area. Spot zoning concerns. This would obviously not be spot zoning, mostly because it would be an expansion of the already existing RA30 zoning district directly across the south side of Stony Hill Church Road. So it would expand up to include the area in red. The large size of the subject property demonstrates that we're not creating a small isolated area, but rather a new district within which multiple lots would be subdivided. We've already discussed the access to the public water service and the good soil conditions for septic systems. We've discussed that the request is consistent with the land development plan. The property already is and will continue to be zoned for residential use. The new zoning district would allow smaller minimum lot sizes, but it would also be more restrictive in terms of the permitted land uses. And of course, the subject property, again, has to be developed in accordance with the proposed site plan. And so now we'll look at that site plan. Joyner Keeney is the land surveyor engineering firm that has submitted this sketch plan for the Williams Grove subdivision. The sketch plan proposes 78 new lots on the subject property. They will be served by Stony Hill Church Road across the front here. And then there are 2 interior roads, a road A that comes in and terminates at the property line to allow for future expansion when this property is developed. And then a road B right in here, which breaks up the block length there and provides 2 ways in and out of the subdivision. The proposed lots either meet or exceed the 30,000 square foot minimum lot area and 100 foot minimum lot width that are standard in the proposed zoning district. If we'll go to the color-coded copy, there is shown in green there a special purpose lot that will be served by an access easement, and that is in recognition of an existing cemetery that's to be preserved on the property. Several of the proposed lots will be impacted by a 50-foot wide riparian stream buffer that's associated with Reedy Branch. You can see that the branch itself forms the perimeter of the property for most of that northern property line, and then it kind of intrudes on the property here for these lots. And so what we're showing in the blue there is a 50-foot riparian buffer on either side of the stream bank where development would be limited or prohibited. And that's why you don't see lots proposed in this area right here. The Bailey USPS postmaster has determined the need for a centralized mailbox kiosk for mail delivery. The sketch plan currently designates that on a special purpose lot right here on Stony Hill Church Road, but that specific location remains subject to approval by both the postmaster and the NCDOT maintenance district engineer. And then the sketch plan also identifies lots 1 through 18. That will be along this stretch here as the first phase that the developer intends to develop. I noted that the subdivision has a waiver request attached, as we discussed at last month's meeting with a different item. When you have residential lots that have direct vehicular access to roads having significant traffic mobility concerns, which means an estimated average daily traffic exceeding 1,000 vehicles per day, those lots typically either have to be twice as wide as would normally be required, or they can be 1.5 times as wide with some extra lot area added to them. Those regulations are intended to space out driveways in order to decrease the potential for traffic accidents. The ordinance specifies that the ADT, or average daily traffic, is calculated by using the latest published data from NCDOT, plus 3% for each year in which the information is not available, and then adding 10 trips per lot proposed in the subdivision. So if you're following along in the report, there's a table there that shows the most recent data from the state was 500 vehicles per day in 2018. You add 3% for the year 2019, that's an additional 15 vehicles, 3% for the year 2020, another additional 15 vehicles. And then there are 78 proposed new lots times 10 additional daily trips each. That brings you to a total of 1,310 daily vehicle trips, which obviously exceeds the 1,000. So lots 1 through 33 that are located directly along Stony Hill Church Road need to accommodate those regulations. The lots that are served by the interior roads, obviously those new interior roads would not have over 1,000 cars per day. So we're only talking about lots 1 through 33. They all have the minimum lot width for the standard requirements, but none of them is wide enough to meet the additional requirements for lots on a high-traffic road. And so the ordinance further goes on to allow for the issuance of a waiver by this board as long as the developer demonstrates something that will provide equal or better performance in the furtherance of the purposes of the ordinance. And so the developer has requested that waiver for lots 1 through 33, and subject to the establishment of 15 20-foot wide private access easements for joint driveways that will be located along almost every other shared lot boundary. And so those 15 access easements would replace the need for 33 separate individual driveways. And if we could zoom in here, you would see that they are highlighted in yellow. It's a little difficult for me to see, but each of those 15 have been noted on the plat, and Lot 5 must be accessed by new Road A only, which would be right here. And lots 22 and 23 must be accessed by new Road B only, which would be right in here. The access easements will serve to restrict the points of vehicular access allowed along the road right-of-way. And then shown in pink is a 5-foot wide non-access easement established in between the gaps of those shared driveways to discourage and prevent the establishment of new driveways in the future. The Technical Review Committee considered the rezoning request, the subdivision sketch plan, and the waiver request back on July 2, 2020, and recommended approval. The Planning Board considered all the requests on July 20. One adjoining property owner addressed the board via email in support of the request, and there were no members of the public present to oppose the request. The Planning Board voted in a split vote 6-1 to recommend approval of consistency statement A, which you'll find below in the report, finding the request to be reasonable, in the public interest, consistent with the recommendations of the land development plan, and not spot zoning. Number 2, the Planning Board recommended approval of the rezoning itself. And number 3, the Planning Board recommended approval of the conditional use permit and subdivision waiver requested for the Williams Grove subdivision. This is going to be a 3-motion process. First, as with every rezoning, the board will need to adopt a consistency statement, and that would be either consistency statement A, which is drafted in support of an approval of the request, or consistency statement B, which is drafted in support of denial of the request. Of course, either of those can be amended as the board sees fit before you adopt one. Motion number 2 would be to actually approve or deny the zoning map amendment based on the previous consistency statement. And then motion number 3 is to adopt a conditional use permit, which actually serves to authorize the development of the Williams Grove subdivision and to approve the subdivision waiver request. There are 4 conclusions with supporting findings of fact. You'll recall from our dealings with solar farms that anytime you issue a conditional use permit, there are 4 criteria under state law that you have to find, that you have to conclude have been met. Number 1, the proposed development will not materially endanger the public health or safety. And in this case, the report notes that it has been reviewed for safety considerations by the Department of Transportation District Engineer in his capacity as a member of the Technical Review Committee. Number 2, the proposed development will not substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. And in this case, the report cites that the subject property must be developed in accordance with the proposed site plan. And so there is some certainty there as to how the lots will be laid out and the roads will be developed. Number 3, the proposed development will be in harmony with the area in which it is to be located. And the report notes that this residential subdivision will be similar to other existing residential developments, including the Williams Ridge subdivision recently established on the south side of the road. And we've already spoken at length about number 4, that the proposed development is in general conformity with the land development plan. I noted that because this is a conditional use permit, you can attach conditions. Both the TRC and the Planning Board have suggested 6 conditions. Number 1, just to highlight the fact that the property, if approved, could only be developed according to the proposed sketch plan. Number 2, the property may be developed for any of the land uses permitted in the RA30 Single-Family Residential Zoning District in accordance with the standard requirements and procedures of the ordinance. And you'll recall that that proposed zoning district is already more restrictive than the current status in terms of land uses. Number 3, all the residential lots subdivided shall be served by the Nash County Public Water System. Number 4 notes the approval of the waiver and states that no additional driveways or points of vehicular access other than those shown on the sketch plan will be permitted or constructed along Stony Hill Church Road. Number 5 notes that the final location of the shared cluster box unit mailbox kiosk is subject to approval of the Bailey Postmaster and the NCDOT District Engineer. And number 6 serves as a reminder to the developer that any substantial design modifications or revisions to the sketch plan, if approved, may require additional review by the planning board and reapproval by this board if they stray substantially from the proposal that you have in front of you today. Mr. Cecil Williams, who is the property owner, and the applicant for the request, is present with us this morning, as is his attorney, Mr. John Williford with Fields and Cooper, and representing Joyner Keeney, the land surveyor and engineering firm, is Mr. Nick Reichmeyer. I'm sure they'll be glad to answer any questions you have this morning. And before we do that, I'll take any questions that you have regarding the staff report.
Questions from board members at this time? Mr. Tyson? Mr. Belfield?
Traffic count. How are they counting that, the Department of Transportation?
I believe what they do is they lay a
Every time
sensor.
a vehicle go in and out, it could be the same one, but it's counted what, the number of times?
Right, it's the number of times, not the number of unique vehicles, but the number of trips.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Tyson, the only question I had, and it's really not directed at this particular, but on those lots 5, 22, and 23, where we are requiring it to come off in a side street,
Correct.
Do we have a minimum distance back from the main street for that access in our ordinance or not?
That, I believe what you're referring to would actually be handled not by our ordinance, but by the driveway permit that gets issued by the NCDOT.
But it's a road.
Okay.
So you're saying,
Maybe I didn't understand the question.
no, you answered it correctly, I think, but so we don't have anything in our ordinance that would dictate that that driveway would have to be X number of feet back, so we don't have a entrance problem with stacking of those people coming out.
Right. But I think the reason we don't have it is because it's addressed by the DOT requirements.
Okay. We might want to look at that sometime.
Okay?
Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, a couple questions. The joint driveways, are they continuous? Or will there be a pipe in between the two joint? So that
They're continuous.
they're totally continuous?
The joint driveway is all one driveway.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Is that driveway wider than a normal driveway because you go into two lots, or is it a 20-foot driveway?
It's 20 foot, he
One
stated.
20-foot for both houses, is that?
Correct, yes. That's what he stated.
Okay, well, seemed like to me that would not be ideal, but what's the reason for doing that? And maybe you said so, and maybe I missed it. Why
The
not have a
reason
driveway
for-
for every house?
The reason for the width of the driveways
No.
or the reason for doing the shared driveways?
Shared driveway.
To limit the number of overall driveways. So the DOT sees every potential driveway as a potential incident as cars are pulling in and out. So if you think about driving down the road, you're monitoring in your peripheral vision cars coming up to different driveways. And the idea is if you have half the number of driveways, you have half the number of areas that are competing for your attention as you're going down the road.
Well, if you share a driveway and both houses coming in and out the same place, then they're,
It's impact points that they're looking at, not vehicles.
I know that's what the state's looking at.
I understand your question.
But I understand, I'm backing up out of my garage and they backing up out of theirs, and you got to worry about if they having a party, I can get out or I can't get out. It
Right.
just seems like to me you'd be better off with separate driveways.
And in order to have separate driveways under our ordinance, the lots would have to be wider and there would be fewer of them than was shown. And so the waiver request is the developer's request to maximize the number of lots that are shown along Stony Hill Church Road.
I think your key statement is it's been determined that it was of equal.
Equal or better
Safety
based
or
on the
better
intent
based-
of the ordinance, which appears to be to limit driveways.
Correct. Other board comments? Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, so the fact that you do, the state asked for the shared driveway, or they recommend it, or?
So the ordinance requires that we do something to address the driveway problem. The shared driveways is a method that has become typical for developers to ask for a waiver of the normal requirements, which would be fewer and wider lots along a heavily traveled road.
And normal is 125 or 150?
Normal is between 150 and 200 depending, feet of width per lot, depending on the overall size of the lot.
But with shared, it's 100?
It goes back to the standard 100.
Okay. Is there, as y'all know, I always have a concern about, having been in real estate for 40 years, I always have a concern about phase one being along existing roads and phase two counting on future construction of roads. Right now, phase one is just going to be the existing road and those two little inserts to serve those
Right.
3 lots.
Phase one would be the first 18 lots across the front from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. And I believe that would leave one area or a gap, if you will, for the road construction. But that gap would have to be constructed somewhat as an access easement because those 2 lots are required to be accessed only through that gap.
And the interior lots for future development, well, number one, will there be a property owners association? And number 2, what assures that those interior lots prior to development of the road and utilities will be maintained?
So to answer the first question, I do believe that the developer plans to have a property owners association. In this particular case, there's no requirement for a property owners association because there are no, well, I take that back because somebody's going to have to own the mailbox lot. So there will be a property owners association. I would anticipate that the easement agreements for the shared driveways would be between the 2 individual lot owners, not on the property owners association.
Right.
Now, the second part of your question, could you rephrase that? Or?
Yeah, what I'm concerned about, currently, is it farmland or it's farmland? Will I'm just concerned, a lot of times when you have interior lots, I've seen it dozens of times, that those areas are never developed and they grow up and no one maintains them. What is in place to assure that with you having the stream there, what's to assure it doesn't grow up and have critters and stuff?
Right. I don't believe there's anything in place that would address the maintenance of the current farmland prior to the developer proceeding with those phases.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay,
I've got a question.
Ms. Leggett?
Mr. Tyson, my question is about the sketch plan that was in our agenda book. It's written on there that it is just a preliminary sketch, and this is not a survey.
Right.
Is this still what the neighborhood would be developed on?
Right. So part of the reason that this is a preliminary sketch is still just a survey is that at this stage of the development, the soils have not specifically been reviewed to make sure that each one of these lots will perk for a septic system. And so, if you will, this is an optimistic plan that has a lot of hope in it. If the soil conditions were to come back not as optimistic as what this proposes, the plan would probably end up with fewer lots than what we're seeing. But because that would be less intensive, there would be fewer resulting lots, and the lots would probably be bigger, that would not necessarily trigger a re-review. So this is a best-case scenario with getting as many lots as possible. If they were to reconfigure the road alignment or add lots in addition to this, that would be something that would send it back through the planning board and this board for reapproval. But if they end up with fewer lots, then that would be considered less intensive, and it would be a step down from what you're being asked to approve today, and so it probably would not trigger a re-review.
It seems like best scenario would be to have more information rather than less.
Right. So the next phase of a subdivision would be a preliminary plat. But typically, you probably would not see a developer invest in the engineering and the work that goes into a preliminary plat until they have a decision on what the zoning and the density would be. And so that's why this is paired with the rezoning request.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, board members?
Is it, that street just ends?
Right.
No cul-de-sac, no nothing back there. Is that okay? I mean,
Right.
fire trucks,
So the-
stuff like that, getting in there, getting out, emergency vehicles.
The concept is that the developer would eventually purchase this property or a different developer and continue that road for a road network system. But when it's developed like this, there will have to be, the DOT will require a temporary turnaround to be constructed at the end on this property. And that will probably involve a little bit of easement in the front yards of both those lot owners. But it will have a temporary cul-de-sac so that anybody who travels to that end of the road inadvertently has an area to turn around and come back.
Any other questions? All right. At this time, then, I would entertain a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Luckett, second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing to hear any comments anyone from the public wishes to make about this rezoning request and the other items attached to it. It is a quasi judicial, and normally we would swear everyone that wishes to speak in at the same time. We are practicing just swearing you in individual as you come to the podium now, so if there's anyone that wishes to speak, you're welcome to come forward now, and we'd be glad to hear from you. We will swear you in, or the Madam Clerk will swear you in first.
And I would just like to be sworn in case I need to.
Okay, but let me have Mr. Tyson sworn in first, Madam.
Yes, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask that the staff report and all the supplemental items be admitted into the record as evidence for the quasi judicial public hearing.
All right, so done, sir. We're going to do this individually, is what my instructions say. Who's going to speak first? Let me, Mr. Lamb, let's leave it at the podium if we could, and then we'll catch them when they come up. I appreciate your eagerness there. Come on up, John.
What I'd like to do is to be able to ask a series of questions to Mr. Williams.
What's that again? No, okay. Your honor's fine. I'm used to it at home.
Mr. Williford is going to present evidence by asking them questions.
So they both need to be sworn.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to have Mr. Nick
Oh.
Reitmeyer speak first.
Why don't we, come on up, Nick. How you doing today, sir? Good to see you. If you'll be sworn in,
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
I'm not sure that oath was administered properly. If you would do it again and ask him to raise his See his hand.
Thank you, I didn't realize that. Yes, sir. If you would place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Nick, if you would step back about the middle way of the aisle now,
Okay.
we're going to get this straight in just a minute. John, if you'll come forward, we'll swear you in, sir. We all envision our health director, Mr. Hill, watching us somewhere in the room and making sure we do this properly, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And Mr. Williams? I think your attorney was hoovering over the Bible, so you should be fine, sir.
Yes, sir.
Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Mr. Williams, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Do we anticipate anyone else that wishes to speak on this item? Please come forward. If you would state your name.
My name is Joseph Michael Eatman. I live in that community.
Okay, Judge. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Yes, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
And anyone else? John, I'll turn it back over to you, ever how you wish to proceed, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to have Mr. Wright go first.
Okay,
He's going to present the technical aspects of the
okay. Nick, come on up, sir.
subdivision.
Good to see you.
My name is Nick Reitmeyer. I'm with Joyner Keeney. They're at 1051 North Winstead Avenue in Rocky Mount. I prepared the site plan, and I think Adam did a good job of going over most of the details. I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have.
This is the engineer of record for this particular site plan. Does anyone have any questions from the board at this time?
I had a question.
Okay.
The lots on the backside of the property, 73 through 76 seem to have a stream or a creek running through the back, almost half of a couple of the lots. Just wondering why lots would be laid out that way.
Well, this is, what we hope we'll be able to do. There's several lots in here that are very questionable, and if it's determined that they're not feasible, they'll either be combined with another lot or, revised in some way to
Okay.
where they're buildable.
Other questions, Ms. Liggett?
No, that's all.
Okay. Other commissioners have questions?
So when you get down to the final plans, if you got lots back there that are not feasible, they're just gone, is that right?
That's correct.
You just don't use them, or you try to, if you got no more land back there, you just got to not use those lots, is that right?
Yeah, there are some that may just be abandoned completely, or, 74, 73, maybe combined with 72, and it just all be one large open area. But that'll all be determined, after we have more information about the soils and those sorts of things.
Okay. Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Mr. Edwards? John, you got anything else?
I would like to ask a series of questions to Mr. Cecil Williams, if I may, and put the evidence before the commissioners in that manner, if that's possible.
Any problem with that, Mr. Durham?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
And I could have him come up here, and I'll try to stand back here and ask the questions, if you could hear me.
I think we can hear you.
Okay.
Me to stand here?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Would you please state your name for the commissioners?
Cecil Thomas Williams Jr., 6765 Jordan Road, Elm City, North Carolina, 27822.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Williams?
Land developer and do a little bit of farming.
And you're proposing the Williams Grove subdivision that's before the commissioners this morning.
Yes, sir.
And this current sketch shows 78 lots.
Yes, sir.
And are you negotiating with the party who will remain unnamed at this point
Yes,
to sell all 78 of those lots
yes,
in a series of takedowns?
yes, sir.
And assuming you enter that contract, this buyer anticipates building single-family detached residences on the property?
Single family detached dwellings, yes, sir.
And do you know what the asking price on those dwellings may be?
Anywhere from 225 to 280,000 per house.
What do you think this subdivision will do to the neighboring property values?
I can't help but just envision that there's going to be even more development in the Bailey area, and I can't help but envision that it's going to increase the other property values significantly.
Now, have you asked your attorney to incorporate a homeowners association
Yes, sir.
for this subdivision?
Yes, sir.
And you signed the articles of organization to incorporate that,
Yes, sir.
but you have not yet obtained a charter from the Secretary of State.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Now, you also own Williams Ridge subdivision on the south side of Stony Hill Church.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's bordered by Chapman Road
Yes, sir.
on the east, I think,
Yes, sir.
which appears in the middle of this subdivision.
Right, yes,
That's
sir.
correct.
Yes, sir.
And how many lots are platted in the Williams Ridge subdivision?
20.
And who are your typical buyers for the lots in that subdivision?
I call them local home builders. The home builders out there that own lots now from Wake County and Johnston County.
And of those 20 lots, how many have you deeded out to the builder so far?
17.
So how many lots do you have left to sell in the Williams Ridge subdivision?
3 that's platted.
And why don't you just sell the Williams Ridge remaining 3 lots to the party who's interested in the Williams Grove subdivision on the north side of Stony Hill Church Road?
Because I want to keep the builders separated, and there's not the 3 lots there, and this other builder wants to do 18 at the beginning and 8 apiece every 90 days from there out till it's finished.
So on the Williams Ridge subdivision, how many homes are in some stage of construction at this point?
7 are dried in or better. Of those, 3 have been sold to other owners. Homeowners are in 2 of them, and another 2 under contract. And the driveways have been installed on 10 more lots, and they are obtaining permits at this time for 10 more houses.
Now, in this subdivision plat that's shown on the screen, there's a green area up there
Yes, sir.
in the middle,
Yes, sir.
and what is that green area?
It represents a cemetery that is going to be preserved.
That's an existing cemetery.
Existing cemetery, yes, sir.
And there's access to that cemetery.
And an access to the cemetery will be provided, yes, sir.
Those are the questions I have for Mr. Williams at this point.
Thank you.
Commissioner, have any questions?
Thank you, Judge Leslie.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Wilson. Anyone else wishing to speak on this rezoning at this time? Did you have something else, Mr. Wilson?
I would like to make a statement.
Okay, please come forward, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
On behalf of C.T. Williams Corporation, who has applied for this subdivision permit, we would ask the county commissioners to adopt the consistency statement. We ask the county commissioners to approve the zoning map amendment, and we ask them to approve the conditional use permit and the subdivision waiver request. I think that Mr. Tyson outlined that this was a suburban growth area. This is where you expect growth to happen. I mean, that's the plan. If you listen to the gentleman earlier on the research triangle, he's talking about bringing more industry to the area. Those people are going to need a place to live. And that's why we have these suburban growth areas, because we're planning on more people living in the county, more people living in the western end of the county. If we don't know exactly how many lots will be on the final plat, but right now there's 78. If we're talking about 78 new homes, we're talking about homes in the range of what might be $250,000 a home, we're talking about a substantial increase in the county tax base. It seems logical that each of those houses is going to have 2 or 3 cars associated with it. Some of those houses are going to have boats associated with it. Those folks are going to be paying property taxes on those cars, on those trucks, and on those boats. Those people are going to be shopping locally. They're going to be supporting local businesses. They're going to be paying taxes, paying sales taxes. They're going to be paying property taxes. They're going to be joining neighborhood groups. They're going to be joining churches. They're going to be joining other civic clubs. This is what the suburban growth area is designed to do. And we have that 4-inch Nash County water main running down Stony Hill Church Road, and that's why that water main is there, to provide growth possibilities in this suburban growth area. And if you think that, Wake County and Raleigh are expanding this way, I mean, this is what's going to happen. This is why we planned the suburban growth area. And we would ask the county commissioners to approve all 3 resolutions Mr. Tyson's outlined. Now, I do not know what Mr. Eaton was going to say, but I would like to reserve a few minutes to speak after he does.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. You would restate your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Joseph Michael Eatman. I live at 9660 Juniper Road, which is just across the street, or catty corner across the street from the plan today. I've listened to the meeting, and I have several of the same questions I've had have been raised, certainly with regard to our fear that the lots that are going to be developed, or at least they're asking to develop first across the Stony Hill Church Road that abut into that. Certainly, our fear is that those smaller lots, if they're approved at this point in time, that the subsequent, it may just be a way to get those done and then abandon any hope of doing the rest. And so that, we would certainly ask that the committee look at that and consider that. We are not, the type of people around there that want to harm anyone's property interest, but we build, my family, other people have built homes on, based on the R40. We do not try and prevent anyone else from doing the same, but we would certainly ask that other people not be given better advantages than what people around there want to. This number of lots, of course, best I can understand, this plan here is just speculative. This is not anything that's in stone. We would ask that you deny it, but we we believe that this would be a harm to our community. If it were to be built out, it would be way too many people in one concentrated area. There's a bad curve in the road there near that as well. And I think some of the concerns that were raised about driveways and various other issues are valid as well. I would ask that you deny this and leave it at the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Was there anyone else that wished to speak on that that came in? Seeing no one, Mr. Wilford?
It is a suburban growth area, and suburban growth area with the 4-inch water main anticipates our A30 CU zoning. And we would ask the commissioners to approve the rezoning.
Thank you, sir. No one else wishes to speak. I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Bellfield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Mr. Tyson, did you wish to say something else, sir?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions of Mr. Tyson? We have a three-part motion here. The first part is to adopt a consistency statement as outlined, either A or B. If I can get my machine cranked back up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, excuse me.
in our
Sorry.
agenda, there's a part in here for any discussion from the board.
Yes.
I'd just like to ask if there's some discussion from the board on this before we take any motions or votes.
My normal procedure would be to get a motion on the floor
Okay.
and then have discussion. But if you want discussion prior to a motion, I would allow you to go ahead at this time.
Okay, well, for the board, one of my concerns, the R30, I have some level of comfort with that. But as far as the driveways and that safety concern, that becomes a concern. And, my idea of development would be to put in a neighborhood and you have controlled access to those houses and going to that right away. I'd just like to get some feedback from the board on what your thoughts are.
I'm a little bit hesitant to continue that conversation without a motion on the floor.
Okay.
If you're okay, I'd like to get a motion and then have those discussions. I think that would be proper.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Durham, you give me any more guidance than what I just stated?
I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, let me entertain a motion to approve a consistency statement at this time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So move that we approve the consistency statement.
A or B, sir?
A.
A, okay. I have a motion to approve consistency statement A. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Wells. At this time, I would entertain any discussion, Ms. Leggett or any other commissioners that you wish to make. And please continue, Ms. Leggett, with any comments you may have.
Okay, well, my comments more have to do with motion number 3, the conditional use permit allowing these
Okay.
double driveways, so to speak,
Okay.
and you be creating this type development, or how it's sketched out, would create 18 new entrances in a small area. I don't have the mileage on that, how many miles it is, but you're creating 18 new entrances versus like a neighborhood type setting where you could create 2 or 3 potentially.
Understood. Other comments from,
When she's talking neighborhoods, I kind of, you have a street in there without all these houses lining the road, Stony Hill Church Road. You build a street and you put those houses back on the street. I think that's her and a lot of people's idea of a neighborhood rather than all these lots right down the road that makes it look so clustered, congested. But
To give you an example of what I think Ms. Leggett is talking about, there's a development that's coming up in the Oak Level area, and it's exactly what you just said, Mr. Cone. There's a road coming in to the interior, and then you access the homes from that entrance road from the interior. You don't access those homes individually from the road. So that's just a point of information.
Other comments from board members, questions? Seeing none, I have a motion on the floor and a properly seconded to approve consistency statement A with items outlined there with consistency statement A. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. The second motion that we would need is a motion to approve the rezoning.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion to approve the rezoning.
I have a motion to approve the rezoning at this time to conditional, to R30 conditional use. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
There's a second. Any questions on the motion or any discussion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well. And the third motion is, Adam, how do I need to say this to get it like you want it?
It is to approve or deny the conditional use permit and the subdivision waiver request. And it needs to be subject to conclusions with supporting findings of fact, which we've suggested 4, and then subject to any development conditions, which there are 6 suggested.
Basically, what we got is you're going to approve the conditional use permit, and that consists mainly of it not having cluster.
Approving it, so what you've done so far is you've rezoned the property to RA30 conditional use.
Correct.
And in a conditional use zoning district, anything that's developed there must be permitted specifically by the board by a conditional use permit. So we've moved beyond a rezoning, and the only question here is, will the development of that property follow specifically the proposed site plan that we're looking at?
Okay, all right, got it. So we need a motion to approve or to deny the conditional use permit and the subdivision waiver, which is about the driveways at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I offer a motion to approve the conditional use permit
And the subdivision waiver.
and the subdivision waiver.
Okay, have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion or discussion?
Just a comment.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, I don't particularly like what we're seeing and what we're doing here today, but we got to realize that Nash County's growing and things are changing, and we can't keep it like it is. My wife owns some property real close to this right here, but we got to move ahead. And the other thing I think we have approved other site plans and other developments in this county, and we can't deny this because we got to be consistent. We got to do the same all over the county, and we've done it before. So that's just my discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner Combs. Other comments by commissioners? Only thing I'd say is to the whole board, if there's anything in our ordinance that you're not satisfied with, the proper way to do things is to get the ordinance in line with the way the majority of the board thinks. Once we got something in our ordinance, we are going to always be on a little shaky ground if we do things that are outside what the ordinance says we can get done, and could certainly be challenged on it. But I do have a motion on the floor at this time. Is there a second? And there is a second. Is there any other comments from a board member? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask one question?
You can, sir?
I do know many municipalities, going forward, many municipalities and DOT prefer what I believe Mr. Outlaw mentioned, in that you don't, you have one or two accesses to a subdivision. And I would ask that we look, when we are looking to review, that we perhaps do that. We look at that. I know this is rural, it's not a municipality, but there's advantages to be able to limit access on these main roads, so.
And the two things that I'd like for us to keep in mind when we look at that is, number one, we don't want to make it so strict that it will complicate matters for, say, a farmer who's got a lot of land, is looking to deed out 1 or 2 lots to his children along the road. So we would want to make sure that it is confined to the major subdivision development process. And then the other thing is, we would not want it to be something that could be easily sidestepped by the developer by simply subdividing the property ahead of time and treating each individual one as a specific subdivision plan that by itself would not trigger the requirement. And so I think those
Yeah.
are two things that we need to keep in mind when we look at that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting y'all pass that, I'm just saying it's something you should look at.
Look at.
Yeah.
And with those two comments, I would always say, Nash County is needing to grow its tax base. We have a utility system that we are spending quite a bit of money on, and we need customers to support that utility system. So it's up to this 7-member board to determine what our policies would be moving forward. Mr. Tyson, you're in the process now of selecting a consultant working on our future development plan. The things we're saying here today are the type things that we'd be looking at that
Right.
point. But until we alter that and get through with your study or any alternates we may do in the interim, we really have to concentrate on what we are currently looking at today. And granted, I'm in the development business, I'm in the construction business, and each one of us have a different trade in life, but we really, there's many ways to grow your tax base. We do know that economic development is one certainly surefire way to do it. It's a challenge, as we see, particularly in the times we're in. But I think Nash County has a great future in economic development, but also, as I report each month, what our housing count looks like in the permits we're issuing, it is another surefire way to grow your tax base as well. And I would address that later in my chairman's comment at the end of the meeting about where we stand on that. But I appreciate everyone working on this item, and we will now move on. Do we need a break, any commissioner, or you want to move?
Yeah.
That was a yes.
I think we need a
All right,
break.
we'll take about a 10-minute recess, and then we'll come back and take up the other public hearing. I'll call the Board of Commissioners meeting back to order at this time. We're on item number 9, which is subdivision waiver request for North Halifax Acres subdivision. I call on Mr. Tyson for this presentation.
This is going to be somewhat similar to the last request we had, except it does not need to be rezoned. This is simply a subdivision waiver request based on shared driveways. The subject property consists of 2 adjacent tracts of land that are outlined in red on the map in front of you. They're owned by Barry R. Brown, and they total up to 23.606 acres in area. They're on the west side of North Halifax Road, north of the town of Dorches, east of the town of Red Oak, in the R30 zoning district. Property is currently undeveloped. It's not located within a regulated floodplain or a designated watershed protection overlay district. It is located within the Tar-Pamlico River Basin. Property does not currently have access to public water or public sewer. Therefore, any residential development would use private on-site wells and septic systems. Stocks Engineering has submitted the major subdivision final plat for the subject property, shown here. On behalf of the developer, Mr. Timothy Matthews, for Section 1 of the North Halifax Acres subdivision, which proposes the development of 11 new residential lots along the existing North Halifax Road. The R30 zoning district requires a minimum lot area of 30,000 square feet and a minimum lot width of 100 feet. and of course, all the proposed lots meet or exceed those minimum requirements. All of these lots have direct frontage along North Halifax Road, with the exception of Lot 11, which is back here. It's larger than 10 acres in size and therefore exempt from typical subdivision lot requirements per state law. There is an existing swale on lots 1 through 5. If I go here, you'll see it in blue, that could have potentially been subject to a riparian buffer, at least at the time this report was written. However, late last week, we received documentation from the state saying that it is not subject to a riparian buffer, so that will simplify the development of those lots substantially. The Brattleboro Postmaster has determined that this particular subdivision will not require a shared cluster box unit mailbox. This portion of North Halifax Road is classified by the ordinance as a road having significant traffic mobility concerns due to traffic exceeding 1,000 vehicles per day. Therefore, the developer has requested a waiver very similar to the one in the last item, which proposes 4 40-foot wide private access easements for shared joint driveways as opposed to 10 individual separate driveways. You can see here that the 4 points of access are highlighted in yellow. There's one to the south, then there's a long access easement here that serves 4 lots, and then you have 2 more down here for shared drive, and then 1 individual driveway right there, just based on how the lots space out. There's no way to make that one share a driveway. The access easement will restrict the lots to just 5 points of vehicular access, and then the pink is again a 5-foot wide non-access easement to prevent and discourage the establishment of additional driveways in the future. The Planning Board and the TRC considered this on July 2, and the Planning Board considered it on July 20. Both boards voted unanimously to recommend approval based on determinations that the requested waiver will result in equal or better performance in the furtherance of the purposes of the ordinance, and that the proposed subdivision design is otherwise consistent with the applicable ordinance standards. This is a one-motion process because there is no rezoning involved. It is simply to approve or deny the waiver. There are some conditions here for the final plat approval. Number 1 is no longer relevant, as we've determined that the stream buffer will not apply per the state evaluation. Number 2, the 40-foot wide access and utility easement that serves lots 3, 4, 10, and 11 needs to be assigned a new road name, preferably ending in lane, and that new road name will need to be reviewed and approved by our addressing administrator and Nash County Emergency Services. The developer will submit the required $60 fee for the new road sign installation. Number 3, prior to recording the plat, my office will need to issue a stormwater management permit, which the engineer has already submitted the required calculations. Number 4, there are a number of certificates that will need to be added to the plat for all the appropriate signatures prior to this recording. And number 5, a road maintenance agreement will need to be recorded for the 40-foot wide access and utility easement. And again, that's the very long one here that serves 4 lots, the 2 lots at the front and then the 2 larger lots at the rear. I'll be glad to take any questions. Mr. Kevin Varnell, representing Stocks Engineering, who prepared the plan. Of course, Donald Hillhorst was the land surveyor, but Mr. Varnell is here to answer any questions that you might have, and I'll take any questions you have on the staff report.
All right, Commissioners, any questions, Mr. Tyson, at this time? Mr. Tyson, where is the stream that you spoke of a couple of times?
It would not appear to be a stream if you were standing there. It's a swale. It's this blue line right here,
I got you now.
and we've determined it's not a stream.
And the lot 10, excuse me. Dan, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Lot 10, it comes back out to Halifax Road?
Lot 10 has frontage along Halifax Road to meet its road frontage requirement, but it will be restricted in its access to this yellow 40-foot wide access easement that goes into the lot right there. And so even though it has frontage up here to satisfy the requirement that lots less than 10 acres have road frontage, its access will be restricted to the long easement on this side.
Okay, so a little odd, but someone else designed it, I guess. When you talked about the maintenance of that 40-foot access road, tell the board about that just a little bit. How does that work?
That would be an agreement that when individual owners purchase either these 2 lots or the 2 lots in the back, they are inheriting with that purchase the responsibility of 1/4 typically the maintenance cost on maintaining that access easement. Of course, there's no, the DOT is not going to adopt an access easement, and the county is not in the business of maintaining roads. And so after a while, if there are places that get washed out, gravel needs to be added, there needs to be a provision for making repairs and maintaining that easement. And so this is a request that they come up with an agreement that would distribute that responsibility equally among the lot owners who use that easement. And it would be an attachment to the deed when they purchase the lot.
Will that be in place prior to final plat?
It would be recorded concurrently with the final plat.
Okay. All right. Other questions? This is not a public hearing, and there's no more discussion. I would entertain a motion to approve or deny the subdivision waiver request.
Mr. Chairman, I offer a motion that we approve the request.
Okay, have a motion by Commissioner Richardson to approve the request. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Is there any other questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? The request stands approved, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing, and it's for the expenditure of economic development funds. And we call on Ms. Phelps at this time. Good morning.
Good morning. We're actually going to pull up, I think Andy had something we wanted to show you earlier after Mr. Cohn's presentation, but our new Nash County Economic Development website has gone live today, so I'll let Andy just touch on that really fast.
All right. Gone live today?
Today.
All right, wonderful.
Yeah,
And
we've
you
got
got a
another
lot
great.
going on today.
Go ahead. Got another great announcement today is that the County Economic Development Department wishes to announce, as Susan said, the launch of the new website, www.selectnashnc.com. The website is a comprehensive economic development tool that provides in-depth information on Nash County's available buildings and sites, resources for doing business in the county, and highlights the county's featured qualities that make it a top selection for new and expanding businesses to call home. The website was developed in collaboration with WRAL Digital Solutions, a full-service digital marketing agency. SelectNashNC.com utilizes the data software from the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina to enable browsing for buildings in prime commercial and industrial sites. This platform also features easy access to demographics and labor force information. The new website will allow Nash County to maintain its competitive advantage in the digital world by marketing the county's many assets. The new site is the new www.selectnashnc.com is a professional economic development website designed to assist site selection consultants, developers, commercial real estate brokers, businesses, corporations, in learning more about Nash County. As Nash County's front door to businesses around the world, a comprehensive website is key to global business recruitment, and in today's world of instant information, we wanted to ensure Nash County was positioned to compete through the power of information. And you got, hopefully you can catch some of it rolling through there. But this falls right in place what we were talking about with Ryan Combs today with the Triangle Partnership, and this is definitely one strong marketing tool that everybody needs trying to recruit businesses. And it's going to be kept up daily, and so this is really about 80%. By the time you get a phone call, they already know, a company already knows about you by looking at your website, about 80% of what they already know about you. So very important marketing tool, and we're excited about it. I want to thank Susan and Emily. We've put a lot of work in this, building it from ground floor, since we didn't have one. So I think it presents a very professional image for Nash County and lets everybody know that we mean business. And we're open for business.
Right. You say it's maintained daily. Do we do that, or does our consultant do that?
Yeah, WRAL, we've got a contract with them that they do. The state access is just part of, we access their software, or that's beyond my pay grade, Susan.
We can do everything in-house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but that's just a part of the whole website, but we manage the whole website and can update it ourselves.
Okay. Right. Other comments, questions from commissioners? Thank you, Andy.
All right, thank you.
Susan, we'll go back to item 10, which will be called for public hearing after you discuss it.
Thank you. I think Jonathan will put our slides back up, but I'll go ahead and start. So pursuant to NC General Statute 158-7.1, a public hearing to consider the use of Nash County Economic Development Inducement Funds for the proposed allocation of $20,000 to New Dixie Oil to support the capital improvements for the purposes of job creation and economic development investment in Nash County. The county's financial support will assist in the upgrade and relining of a Nash County sewer line that runs through the redeveloped property. The new development will provide local jobs and a $3 million capital investment for the town of Dorches and Nash County, and will include a quick service restaurant combined with a gas station and C-store, convenience store. So what we are asking today is the consideration of approval for economic development funds after a public hearing, and then after that, we also have the approval of an easement and indemnity agreement with New Dixie for future easement for a sewer line, should that ever need to be relocated. So just to kind of show you what the project's looking like. We've been working on this for over 2 years with the owners of New Dixie. We'll anticipate 10 full-time jobs and 10 part-time jobs with the redevelopment of this store. We're looking at a $3 million investment once they're completed, and they're set to be open by June of 2021. So just to give you an idea of the site, this is taken in July for a before. As you know, when you've driven by, you've seen a lot of site work over the years. They relocated the Dorches Club to beside Smith, so they have taken that property as well as a little bit of the property from the one behind. This just gives you an overall aerial of the proximity to 95 and shows the traffic counts per DOT on 95 and also on Dorches Boulevard. So that's an overall aerial. That's the current store, so that will be demolished and a new C-store and gas station and food service provider will go in its place. Here's an idea of the site layout that we're working with for the relining of the sewer. So that building will be enlarged and pushed back on the site. So the need to reline that sewer line to reinforce it because of the amount of site work was really needed. And that just gives you an overall look at the current site with the new site plan over that. And the applicant was unable to be here today due to social distancing, so once we open public hearing, I do have a statement I can read from them.
Sure. Okay. Any questions of Susan this time? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Combs, second by Commissioner Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we're now in a public hearing for the purpose of hearing from anyone in the public that wishes to have a comment or any questions about the county spending economic development funds for this particular project. And at this time, we would be glad to hear from anyone that's here to speak on it. Seeing no one, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. So moved.
Motion to close by Commissioner Wells, second by Commissioner Richardson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think Ms. Phelps had a statement that she needed to read.
You're absolutely right. She told me that.
That's
and
okay.
Ms. Richardson keeps kicking me up here, so I'm trying to move along. I
It's a short
apologize for
one.
that.
It's okay.
Let me back up, and I'll call for that motion
There you go.
again in just a moment. Please go ahead and read that.
Okay, this is from Scott Amon, President of New Dixie Oil, and he's 1501 Marshall Street, Roanoke Rapids, NC. Let me first share that I'm very thankful for the support of the Dorchester community and the town leadership and Nash County leadership. This project will be awesome and something that we are very proud of. It has been and remains a work in progress, especially with the COVID shutdown impacts as it relates to the food and restaurant industry. We remain patient and very optimistic as we work towards securing a preferred top-tier food partner. Even with that, we have much that we can proceed with and accomplish. Our goal is to do just that. As an example, in Selma, we pre-designed and planned a cold, dark shell for a great food partner that created an awesome facility. We have already made significant investment in preparation, including acquiring additional land, doing clearing, and started some fill. We have been working closely with all town and county leadership to fine-tune our site and our intentions. Within these efforts and in collaboration, it is believed that we have a wise solution for the county septic line to line it in place after we complete our fill and subgrade. This is the purpose of the grant and request that we are asking for. Note that our plans show that we have no structure footings within the easement of the sewer line. We are only adding 10 feet of fill and paving and concrete over that. It is mutually agreed that we will have a Plan B in place that allows for future easement around the perimeter of our property if ever the county needs to relocate it. It is very exciting when everyone works together for mutual success. We look forward to pushing forward with continued support of Nash County leadership. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks.
I apologize
That's
again for
okay.
skipping that. I'm going to retain the motion that I have on the floor and the second. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Public hearing is closed at this time. And the action that we should take is a motion to approve or deny the request to spend these funds. Is there any questions about it? This has been going on, as Susan said, for quite a long time. She and Mr. Boone have worked on it, as well as other staff members, very hard. And I think we've got a solution that apparently Mr. Amen was satisfied with. Mr. Boone, did you want to add anything? I know you've accepted something in the middle on behalf of the county. Any comments you wish to make?
I would just say the agreement we came up with was a compromise. It wasn't exactly what I'd like to see, and ideally, but I think it's a solution that hopefully will work with New Dixie and will work with the county.
And just in layman's terms, what we're doing is allowing the sewer line to stay where it's at. We are lining the sewer line after the field is put in, which means it should buy a significant number of years more useful life. And if something should happen to it, we are getting an easement during this process that the county could relocate the sewer line if it becomes necessary in the future. It's basically what we're doing.
And you have that agreement at your desk to approve also.
Right, we do have an agreement here that was left at your desk this morning. Any other discussions from the board? I'd entertain a motion to approve or deny this request.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
And a second came from Ms. Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Now, Mr. Boone, do I need to take separate action to approve this? Is that a later item?
No, we'll
not.
go ahead and add it to this one, so just
Okay.
approve that, execution of that indemnity agreement.
Mr. Boone, are you saying I need to get board action to be able to sign this agreement?
Yes, sir, you do.
Okay.
New Dixie is signing it and will be getting it to me this week, and I wanted you to be in a position to sign it as well.
Okay, I understand then. What we're saying is the easement that we're getting for a future relocation, if it's ever needed, I need a motion to approve this relocation and addendum, whatever that word is, agreement.
Make a motion, we approve this easement relocation and indemnity agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Combs, I have a motion and a second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved, and we will sign that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, which is a agreement for transport. Mr. Brantley?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yes, as I told you, I'd be back for the second approval as required by general statute for the franchise agreements for North State Medical, Eastern Medical, and Met's Medical Transport Services that will be utilized at the request of Nash County EMS. So I'm here back for the second approval.
Any questions, Mr. Brantley? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw,
Second.
second by Commissioner Belfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Agreement stands approved, sir. Thank you.
Is it okay if I give you just a little briefing on the storm?
Absolutely. I
Chairman.
think we'd all be very, from the looks of the window at break, I think we'd be very interested in what you have to say, sir.
Yes, the rains have started already heavily, and as Brent and I were trying to say, the word ominous clouds out there. It's sort of a hard word to say, but we are asking that you would sign a state of emergency this afternoon.
I expected a call yesterday that didn't come, but be glad to.
Yes, sir, we'll get that to Janice and be ready for you after this meeting.
Okay.
We also will invite any of the municipalities to join in on that state of emergency if they so desire, and we basically will just add them to our state of emergency, and they'll be contacted this afternoon. Our operations center is open now, downstairs. We'll be operating all day and all night from the operations center. Brent is continuously sending out updates on the storm. Based on his latest update, we can start seeing parts of the storm at 4 p.m. this afternoon, which is blending right in with this heavy rain we're already getting. We'll have some wind speeds up to, I think, 20 to 40 miles per hour by midnight. And then the worst wind gust would be somewhere around 60 miles per hour around 4 a.m. And it's quickly going to move on out. We are not opening shelters. As y'all all know, it's an unusual time with trying to congregate shelter with the COVID situation. As you've seen, emergency management and health people saying that shelter is probably one of the last places you would want to be in this situation. So please go to somebody's home, a friend of yours or family member that maybe has a substantial structure. And of course, one of the biggest threats, as usual, is heavy rain and flooding on the roadways, which is probably going to be a lot of that at night. And so you have to be extremely careful on the roads tonight with the rain coming in. The river, of course, looks good for us. I think supposed to crest Thursday at about 17.1 feet, which is good. A minor flooding stage is 21 feet. We have we'll be bringing in some additional 911 staff to work at the backup center in Rocky Mount to support the group here. The EOC staff will be supporting the 911 center as well by getting trees down reported to DOT, getting in touch with Duke Power, doing Rocky Mount Power, a lot of those things that our EOC staff can do to take a load off of the 911 operators. We will have additional staff EMS during the night, and so we're just praying that Nash County will be spared. That 60-mile-per-hour gust, most of our structures would stand that. However, with all this rain coming with 60-mile-per-hour gust, we could have a lot of trees down. Of course, that leads to power outages and certainly the potential for some injuries. But we're just hoping that that won't happen. Our EM office staff will be supporting the EOC tonight, all the way through the night. I told Brent if I left anything out that he's got something on the agenda next, and his brain's a lot younger than mine, so he remembers a little better than I do. But again, we appreciate y'all's support. We'll be staying in touch with Z, maybe all night, so sometimes his phone might ring at 3 in the morning from our EOC staff, so, but we appreciate his support as well as y'all's. Any questions, Brent and I'll try to answer regarding the storm, and again, we just pray that Nash County is spared, because it's coming right up I-95 based on what it looks like.
Any questions of Mr. Brantley from the board? We greatly appreciate the update.
I have
First-hand information, Mr. Lamb, excuse me.
one clarification. I know it's a virtual EOC, so people like me need to stay away and just be there by phone. How many people, like Nashville Fire Department, police, will they be coming in? No.
No.
Just.
It'll all be county staff, and we'll be social distancing and masks tonight.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Wright.
y'all for what you do.
Thank y'all.
That moves us to item number 12, which is the Nash Edgecombe Wilson NEW Regional Hazardous Mitigation Plan. I call on Brent Fisher and Adam Tyson, whichever order they wish to go for this presentation. Good morning, sir.
So before you, we have the Nash Edgecombe Wilson, or the NEW Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. The Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 and North Carolina Senate Bill 300 requires each local government to have an approved hazard mitigation plan and update it every 5 years. So we currently have one that actually expires August 13th of this year, so in just a few days, 10 days. So it's perfect timing, but it is required to be updated every 5 years to be eligible for federal and state funding following a declaration of a disaster. This plan has been prepared in coordination with FEMA Region 4 and North Carolina Emergency Management, and in compliance with Section 322 of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, or referred to as Stafford Act, 42 U.S.C. 5165, enacted under Section 104 of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, Public Law 106-390 of October 30th, 2000, as implemented at CFR 201.6 and also 201.7, dated October 2007. Additionally, the plan will be monitored and updated on a routine basis in compliance with the above legislation and with the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968, as amended by 42 U.S.C. 4001, and North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 166A, North Carolina Emergency Management Act, as amended by Senate Bill 300. Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson counties and their 25 municipalities have recently completed the regional plan with assistance from the consulting firm of Wood. The Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan has been approved by North Carolina Emergency Management and is currently being reviewed by FEMA. And our recommended action is approved of the attached resolution of adoption for the Nash Edgecombe Wilson Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And you have also before you the resolution. Do you want me to read that, or are we good with how it's presented?
I'd leave that up to you, sir.
All right. I'll read it if you don't mind.
I'd be glad for you to.
Resolution adopting Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson County Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Whereas Nash County is vulnerable to an array of natural hazards that can cause loss of life and damages to public and private property, and whereas the Nash County desires to seek ways to mitigate situations that may aggravate such circumstances, and whereas the development and implementation of a hazard mitigation plan can result in actions that reduce the long-term risk to life and property from natural hazards, and whereas it is the intent of the Nash County Board of Commissioners to protect its citizens and property from the effects of natural hazards by preparing and maintaining a local hazard mitigation plan, and where it is also the intent of the Nash County Board of Commissioners to fulfill its obligation under North Carolina General Statutes, Chapter 166A, North Carolina Emergency Management Act, and Section 322, Mitigation Planning of the Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act, to remain eligible
to receive state and federal assistance in the event of a declared disaster affecting the Nash County. And whereas Nash County, in coordination with all other participating jurisdictions of the Nash Edgecombe Wilson region, has prepared a regional hazard mitigation plan with input from the appropriate local and state officials. And whereas the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management and the Federal Emergency Management Agency will receive a draft of the NEW Nash Edgecombe Wilson Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan to review for legislative compliance and approve pending the completion of local adoption procedures. And whereas the current Nash Edgecombe Wilson Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan expires August 13, 2020. Now therefore be it resolved that the Nash County Board of Commissioners hereby, 1, adopts the Nash Edgecombe Wilson Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan, and 2, agrees to take such other official action as may be reasonable necessary to carry out the proposed actions of the plan adopted on the 3rd day of August 2020.
Okay, any questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the plan and to approve the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
All right, thank you.
Get it signed right after the meeting.
All right, thank you. And I did want to just add one thing, if I may, about the shelter situation. We did have a reception center set up at Nash Community College, so we want to thank them certainly for their partnership and willing to set up the reception center. There was a possibility of residents coming from the coast needing somewhere to go, and they were going to go to that reception center and then been offered a hotel room or a shelter location that they should go to. But we do want to thank Nash Community College for their partnership and assistance with that reception center.
Thank
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I compliment them on this plan?
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah, the first one I was involved in this county 5 or 6 years ago really was not a pleasant situation. It took a lot of time, and I just want to thank you and Adam and the contractor for doing such a smooth job. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a team effort. Thank you.
Mr. Tyson, did you need to add anything? I should have asked you, sir. You good? I'm just a little bit interested. We've got 3 counties involved. What do the other 2 counties do? Something similar?
Yes. All the counties have to bring the resolution before their board and approve, and also the municipalities have to do the same thing.
Did y'all meet with the other counties some during this process?
Yeah, there was actually a couple of meetings.
You don't need to go into detail. I was just kind of wondering how it worked.
Yeah, there was about 4 meetings with all the counties, and municipalities were invited to meetings over at the college. So yes, they were involved in that situation. And there was 2 public hearings also.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyson. All right, that takes care of item number 12. Item 13, I don't see Brandon Major Moore. Are you going to handle 13? Okay, please come forward.
Good morning, how y'all?
Good morning. Chief Deputy doing okay, I hope?
Yes, sir, he, as part of our operations for the jail, you know, he started detention officer school today.
That's right.
Yes,
He
sir.
did. He told me that.
He asked me to come in his place.
Okay.
On the agenda here, we've got a request, like we've done in the past. We have one of our canines, police canines that we use. We've had about 5 years, K9 Kilo, and has started having some medical issues that makes it impossible for us to use him anymore. So we're coming before you to ask that the K9 be retired and donated like we have in the past. The only thing that's different here, normally in the past, we have when our K9s are retired, the K9 handler that has them usually accepts responsibility for the K9 and keeps them after that. Excuse me, Deputy Patterson, who is the current K9 handler, he operates some type of family business, and I'm not familiar with the specifics of that would prevent him from doing that. So we're trying to locate somebody that would be willing to take that dog and obviously incur the medical costs that come with that dog, so that the county wouldn't be responsible for him anymore. Sheriff Stone has stepped up and said if we do not find somebody, that he would be willing to take the dog and accept that responsibility himself. But we are trying to find a good either person or organization that would be willing to do that.
Okay. But And even though in lieu of that, you still want us to approve?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll take care of trying to locate,
right.
someone to assume that responsibility.
All right, any questions, Major Board? See none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Leggett, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries, sir.
Thank you.
Always wondered about the name of that particular K-9 we have. I guess there was a reason for that.
Yes, sir. Sometimes there's some humor when we name them. We've got another one named Chase, K-9 Chase, so
Okay,
sometimes there's some humor when we name them.
nothing wrong with humor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 14, which is a proposed plan to address delinquent water and sewer accounts. And I'll call on Mr. Boone again. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as you hopefully had a chance to review in your agenda packet, the department has prepared a action plan moving forward. As you may recall, back in March, the county implemented a moratorium on utility disconnections. Shortly thereafter, Governor Cooper issued Executive Order 124, which also implemented a statewide ban on utility disconnections and also a ban on late fees and any additional collection practices. That order was extended in late May on the 29th for another 60 days, Executive Order 142, and then that executive order expired 11:59 p.m. this past Wednesday. So moving forward, we felt the need to, again, craft a plan in terms of how we intend to move forward with our utility holders who may have a past due account. As outlined in my memo, you would have noted we currently have about 100 utility account holders who have balances that are delinquent. We have 30, I believe, that were in excess of 90 days, 20 in excess of 60 days, and 50 in excess of 30 days. And while, again, Executive Order 142 has been lifted, and certainly the county wants to be as accommodating as we can in terms of utility disconnection, that we feel a need to try to be proactive in terms of how we manage those accounts moving forward. So the proposal would be to reach out to our utility customers with a delinquent balance, if approved by the commissioners this week. That would be in writing and through use of Code Red, which is the county's emergency notification system. Certainly we want to wait till after this current weather crisis passes before we do that. We want to create any conflict with any emergency messages that need to go out. Begin to alert our customers to the need or the county's intent to move forward and request that they establish a repayment plan, again, in concert with the executive order that was issued by the governor, which requests that utility accounts be allowed at least 6 months to bring delinquent accounts current, and in doing so, continue to provide utility services. So that is the recommendation. My recommendation to the manager and to the board is that we contact our customers, ask them to make arrangements to bring their account current, allow them an adequate amount of time to do so, but in the absence of such repayment plan, that we resume our utility disconnection. So it would be we would continue to provide utilities to account holders that have a delinquent account, but only in cases where they have been proactive, they have reached out to the county, worked with the county to establish a repayment plan. And again, that would be for a minimum of 6 months. We have recently, back in March, shortly after the governor's executive order, established repayment plans that extend out to 12 months. But again, some effort to be proactive to manage these accounts moving forward so that we have a plan to deal with these customers. But again, being sensitive to the situation that COVID-19 has created in our county, in our state, and in our country. But with that said, I'd welcome any feedback from the commissioners in terms of how you would like to see us proceed.
Questions or comments from the board?
Within that 6 months, will there be a late charge?
So the intent would be any repayment plan would require the account holder to pay their current utility charges for that month, and then whatever prearranged payment towards their delinquent balance to again dispense with that, that balance within whatever time frame has been agreed to, certainly a minimum of 6 months. So a late fee would only apply if they miss their payments moving forward. If they have a repayment plan in place, they're meeting the conditions of that payment plan, then we would not impose a late fee. But if they fail to follow through with the repayment plan that's been established, then yes, a late fee would apply.
Yeah, all customers will be sent this information.
Well, again, the intent would be to focus on those 100 accounts that currently have outstanding balances, but certainly the conditions by which we're making the service available applies to all 3,000 customers. But we're focusing initially on those customers with a delinquent balance. But if you're current in your account, you receive your next utility bill, you do not pay by the 18th, you would be subject to a $10 late fee. And by the 25th, you would be subject to disconnection. Unless, again, you reach out to the county, and before we disconnect anyone's utilities, we always issue a code red message for those utility account holders. Now, the limitation there is we're somewhat dependent on the contact information that the utility account holder has provided. They have not given us a current account number or a current phone number, or they've changed phone numbers. We're limited in terms of how we can contact our customers in a timely manner based on the contact information that they have given us and we retain in our utility system.
So you don't bill the customer?
We do not bill the customer. Can you expound on that a bit? We do not bill the customer for what?
For their monthly fee?
Yes, we would continue to send out bills every month for an account that's current.
Okay.
And maybe I misunderstood your question. If my account is current and I receive a bill next month and I do not pay by the 18th of the month, I would be subject to a $10 late fee, and by the 25th of the month, I would be subject to disconnection. But before my utilities are disconnected, I would receive a code red message from the county saying, your account is delinquent, you have a balance due, you are subject to disconnection, you need to reach out with us to bring your account current or to establish a repayment plan. Otherwise, your utilities would be disconnected.
And when you say current, you're talking about the expiration of what the governor had put in place for utilities. And from when that expires, then you start, and from that point, you call it current, right?
I believe the governor's executive order applies to balances occurred and balances that accrued during the month of March, April, May, June, July. It does not account for balances that accrue during the month of August. But the county already has a policy to allow customers to establish a repayment plan. So let's say you get your August utility bill and you incurred some financial hardship, maybe COVID related, maybe not, but you cannot make your payment for the month of August. You would receive a message from the county and say, Mr. Boone, our records reflect you have an outstanding balance for the month of August. You need to contact our office and make plans to bring your account current, or your utilities will be disconnected. So irrespective of COVID, that option has always been available to every Nash County utility customer, and that same policy would apply moving forward. The governor's executive order applies to those accounts that accrued a balance during the month of March, April, May, June, July, and would require the county to provide those customers the ability to establish a repayment plan that would bring their account current within a minimum time period of 6 months. So that we're dealing with two separate but related issues. But we've always had a policy to extend a repayment plan option to a utility customer that has a delinquent balance, and that would remain in place.
So if they're delinquent 1 month, you can disconnect the services.
If they're delinquent in the absence of a repayment plan, we can disconnect their service.
Other questions, Mr. Belfield?
That's it.
You good? Okay. Other questions from Commissioner? John, I don't think it applies to us, but one thing that happened that I didn't understand, the Utility Commission, you may can help me, did something. Now, I mean, something after the executive order ran out, I read something about the Utility Commission doing something. Do you know what that was, or Mr.
Well, the
Lamb?
Utility Commission only has jurisdiction over investor-owned utilities. And there was a
Investor-owned.
separate provision for investor-owned utilities, I believe, that had a longer repayment
Right.
period in effect. And then the effective date for those accounts that would apply would be at the date that the governor's executive order expired. So it was clarification issued that it would be for accounts that had a delinquent balance as of 11:59 PM on July 29th. And then I believe they had to provide up to 12 months
Right.
for those account holders to bring their account current before they could be disconnected.
Can you define investor-owned utility?
So not a municipal or county-owned utility, not a publicly owned utility. So a
Duke or
Duke
Dominion.
Energy, I'm
Duke or
having trouble with
Dominion.
natural gas, but
Right.
a publicly, generally a public entity, public
I got
utility.
it. I see the
Excuse me,
difference.
I keep saying public, private, a private utility.
Right, okay, I got it. That just confused me a little bit, but I think I got it now. Publicly owned utility. Apparently, they should be more wealthy than
I think the thought would be that they have more resources available.
resources available. Good way to put it, okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
During the last month, some cities and municipal water systems were having cash flow problems.
Correct.
And that's why I believe it wasn't extended, but apparently it is extended for the publicly traded private utilities. Just to clarify, Mr. Belfield, we, even before the governor did his order, we administratively suspended the cutoffs. And what this does, what this request does is we will reinstate them, but we will comply with what the governor's executive order was for that period up to July 29th, which bars late fees, correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last portion of what you said?
Late fees,
What about late fee?
we waive late fees.
We did not impose any late fees during those 4 months,
Right.
to the tune of about $11,230.
So what, and that was in the order. So what we will do now is give each of those delinquent, those 100 people, 6 months or so to bring that up to normal, but going forward, we're going back to the old system.
And to further elaborate on what the manager just reported, again, in March, we would have typically implemented disconnections March 25th, thereabouts. The governor's executive order was implemented on March 31st. So again, we had already suspended disconnections in March before the governor's executive order took place. And at that time, I believe we had right at 130 utility customers subject to disconnection.
Am I understanding you clear that where the governor's executive order started in March up to the point that it retired, and those utility bills, there's no late charge, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Other comments, questions?
Just got one quick question. So a delinquent customer would have 6 to possibly 12 months to repay what they owed in utilities, correct?
For charges they accrued during the month of March, April, May, June, July.
Right. Are there any provisions being made for very unusual and out of the ordinary circumstances that might prevent that person from being able to make those payments once they had started? In other words, is there an appeal process where they could come speak to you or someone else and appeal that process if they had to have an interruption for some valid reason. For example, let's say they're running along and all of a sudden they're diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, we're certainly going to be sensitive to our customers' needs. Just, I think the key there, whether it's on the county's perspective or the customer's perspective, is to have that communication, be proactive. Certainly, if a utility customer encounters a hardship, we're going to want to work with that utility customer as best we can.
Thank
But we want to be proactive.
Thank you.
Well,
Appreciate it.
it's an agreed upon repayment plan, so it's worked back and forth quite a bit, I'm sure.
Correct.
All right, for no other question, I'd entertain a motion to approve the policy that Mr. Boone has outlined for us this morning.
I'll make a motion, we approve the proposed plan of action to address delinquent water and water and sewer utility accounts.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. Have a motion by Commissioner Combs there, second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Belfield. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Board, thank you for your work on this, Mr. Boone, and anyone else to help you work on it. Looks like a great plan. If you recall, item 15, we had a resolution brought to us last month that the board chose to table, and a committee was appointed consisting of the attorney, Commissioner Belfield, and Commissioner Outlaw, who I asked to lead that, and I'm just going to turn this item over to Commissioner Outlaw this time to give his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to make a few comments that'll give you some background on this particular resolution. But first, I want to say it's a pleasure for me, on behalf of the committee, Commissioner Belfield and myself, to present a resolution affirming the Nash County Board of Commissioners' support for the right of the people to lawfully carry concealed firearms. This resolution also reaffirms the board's sworn oath to uphold the federal Constitution and the Constitution of the state of North Carolina. This matter was initially brought to the board by Mr. Alan Chesser at the July 6th meeting. After discussion of a resolution at this meeting, which Mr. Chesser authored, the board decided to table the matter, appoint a committee to review and factually check the resolution, and bring a final resolution back to the board for consideration at the August board meeting. This work has been completed with the resolution in your agenda as the final product. If adopted by the board, the committee recommends that it be sent to our local North Carolina General Assembly representatives. Commissioner Belfield and myself were appointed by Chairman Davis to meet and review this matter with the county attorney, Vince Durham, and we also met with Mr. Chesser. I want to thank Mr. Belfield, and I especially want to thank Mr. Durham for the time and effort that was put into this matter. I'd also ask Mr. Durham to express thanks to Mr. Will Pulley, who works with Mr. Durham, for the research he did with the proposed resolution to ensure factually correct. And I have some information from that research that I will leave in your box today. I'd also like to thank Mr. Chesser for meeting and discussing this matter with the committee. He was invited to be with us today, but could not be here due to a family commitment. The committee is bringing you a resolution today that can be summarized with three main points. One, it reaffirms, as duly elected commissioners of Nash County, our commitment to uphold federal laws and the laws of the state of North Carolina while maintaining, supporting, and defending the constitutions of same. Two, it draws a clear distinction, and this is an important point. It draws a clear distinction between the right of the people to keep and bear arms versus the carrying of concealed weapons. And finally, it affirms the support of the Nash County Board of Commissioners for the constitutional right of the people to carry a properly permitted concealed handgun. This resolution, to the best of our knowledge, is factually correct and has the unanimous support of the appointed committee and Mr. Durham. Now, before I read the resolution, I want to ask Mr. Belfield, followed by Mr. Durham, if they have any comments they would like to make. Mr. Belfield?
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw. The only comment I have to make, first one, is that we follow the law in putting this together. There were some things that concerned me that we couldn't put in there because, for example, like, in my mind, I was concerned about people taking weapons to these rallies, opposing and supporting with concealed weapons, and especially guns. And we couldn't put all that in there because the law for state of North Carolina, we felt, in advice from our attorney, that we would probably not have a proper resolution that totally comply with the laws of this state and as well as the United States. So I was satisfied the way we did it. I think we put together a good resolution following the law, and I'm here to support it.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Mr. Durham?
I would simply say that Mr. Belfield and Mr. Outlaw have described it very well, and I believe the current resolution complies with the law and the statutes and the Constitution, and I certainly support its adoption, and thank Mr. Belfield and Mr. Outlaw for their assistance and leadership to get this done.
Thank you, Mr. Durham. And Mr. Belfield and I did have a discussion regarding that exact comment that he just made. And when I read the resolution, I think you'll see that we dealt with the law. And if the law is to be changed, that's not in our hands. That's in the hands of people above us. But the current law is what this resolution is based on. So with that said, I'm going to read the resolution. It's a resolution of the Board of Commissioners, Nash County, North Carolina, affirming its support of the right of the people to lawfully carry concealed firearms and reaffirming its oath to uphold the federal and state constitutions. Whereas the Nash County Board of Commissioners are the duly elected governing body of Nash County, North Carolina, upon which each commissioner is sworn in as a Nash County Commissioner, and she takes an oath to maintain, support, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of North Carolina, and is duty-bound to uphold the laws of the United States and the laws of the State of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith. And whereas the Second Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And whereas Article 1, Section 30 of the Constitution of the State of North Carolina makes a distinction between the right to keep and bear arms and the carrying of concealed weapons, and provides that while the right to keep and bear arms may not be infringed, the carrying of concealed weapons may be regulated. And whereas the state of North Carolina has preempted local ordinances and regulations relating to the carrying of concealed weapons, and has stated that it is the intent of the General Assembly to prescribe a uniform system for the regulation of legally carrying a concealed handgun, and whereas the General Assembly of North Carolina has enacted Article 54B of Chapter 14 of the North Carolina General Statutes, allowing the issuance of concealed handgun permits in accordance with that chapter, and whereas the North Carolina General Statutes regulates the carrying of concealed weapons, that would be statute 14-269, sections A and A1. And those statutes provide as follows. It's important that you hear this part. It shall be unlawful for any person willfully and intentionally to carry concealed about his or her person any bowie knife, dirk, dagger, slung or slingshot, loaded cane, metallic knuckles, razor, shuriken, stun gun, or other deadly weapon of like kind, except when the person is on the person's own premises. That's the law. A1, it shall be unlawful for any person willfully and intentionally to carry concealed about his or her person any pistol or gun except in the following circumstances. The person is on the person's own premises. The deadly weapon is a handgun. The person has a concealed handgun permit issued in accordance with Article 54B of this chapter or considered valid under General Statute 14-415.24, and the person is carrying the concealed handgun in accordance with the scope of the concealed handgun permit as set out in the general statute. 3, the deadly weapon is a handgun and the person is a military permittee as defined under General Statute 14-415.10-2A, who provides to the law enforcement officer proof of deployment as required under General Statute 14-415.11A. Now therefore be it resolved that the Nash County Board of Commissioners does hereby affirm their support of the right of North Carolina citizens to carry a concealed handgun so long as they are properly permitted or otherwise allowed as required by Article 54B of Chapter 14 of the North Carolina General Statutes, and if approved, it will be adopted this day in August 2020 and signed by Chairman Robbie B. Davis and attested to by the clerk to the board, Janice Evans. And Mr. Chairman, with that read, I offer a motion on behalf of the committee for adoption of the resolution.
A second.
All right, I have a motion to adopt the resolution and properly seconded. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion stands approved, and be delighted to sign the resolution. And I want to thank the committee for their hard work on this. I think we had a situation that tabling it for a month brought us to a much better place than any action we might have taken last month. And again, thank the committee members for working on it. Looks like you did a lot of work. Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw, for chairing that committee. All right, we are now on item number 16, which is the sale of the Nash County Gold Rock property. And I will turn this over to our attorney, Vince Durham, to make the presentation.
At the July County Commissioners meeting, this board voted to accept the offer of Marvin and Sharon to purchase the property now owned by Nash County, formerly Carmel 1, located in Gold Rock, approximately 4 acres, for the sum of $104,945. The commissioners indicated that their intent to accept this offer was conditioned upon his agreement to demolish and clear the property within 6 months after the transfer of the property, and that the property be commercially redeveloped within 36 months after the transfer. Mr. Sharon emailed me his agreement to comply with those conditions. I ran the ad in the newspaper on the 14th, and people had until the 24th to file an upset bid. No upset bids were received. I emailed Mr. Sharon this past week asking what names to put the title in and when did he want to close, and he indicated I would be hearing from his attorney this week that they were setting up a LLC to hold title. I would ask this board to adopt a motion approving the sale of this property, subject to those same two conditions, and instruct me to prepare the deed to the appropriate purchaser or his assigns as soon as he's ready to pay us the cash to close the transaction, which hopefully will happen within the next 30 days.
Any questions on this item from board members? Mr. Lamb, you have any questions? All right, entertain a motion to approve this request then.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on the motion itself? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Durham. It's been a long time coming as well, hasn't it?
There are.
All right, we are on item number 17, budget amendments, and I'll call on our Finance Director, Donna Wood, at this time. Good morning, ma'am. And I think you had one
Good
item.
afternoon.
Good afternoon, I guess you're right. Sorry. I think you had one item that was on our desk this morning as well. She'll get to, I guess.
I had several amendments, had 4 pages of amendments in the agenda, and then I added one additional budget amendment this morning. The first item that I have for the commissioners to consider for approval, and if it's okay with the board, I'll just go through all the amendments at one time.
As long as you don't need separate action on them, that's fine.
Just one action would be
Okay.
fine. The first item is with Travel and Tourism Special Revenue Fund. This amendment is to correct the fiscal year 2021 budget for the Travel and Tourism Fund budget. The 2021 budget ordinance as adopted June 15th, 2020 included $60,000 more funding than approved by the Tourism Development Authority Board. The Authority Board approved $540,000. The adopted budget had $600,000, so this is a correction of $60,000 to that budget. The next,
That was the items we deleted during the budget public hearing?
that is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
I got you. Thank you.
The next item is in the Planning and Development Department. This amendment is to appropriate funding to assist with promotion of participation in the 2020 U.S. Census. This funding will specifically aid with special media advertising for self-response, which was originally scheduled to end July 31st, 2020, but extended through October 31st, 2020 due to COVID-19, and it's requesting $1,500 from fund balance. The original end date, since it was in July, that's why it wasn't included in the original budget. The next item is with facility maintenance. This amendments to budget, this is park facility maintenance. This amendments to budget park improvement funds for Glover Park from the town of Nashville for the memorandum of understanding between Nash County and the town of Nashville for maintenance and operations at Glover Park in Nashville. It's $20,000 and no county funds required. Next item is Department of Social Services. This amendments to budget rollover unspent funds received from the state to assist with adoption awareness. It's $27,420. The next item is with the Rural Operating Assistance Program Special Revenue Fund. This amendment is to reduce the funds approved in the fiscal year 2021 budget ordinance as adopted June 15th, 2020, and to roll over unspent funds from fiscal year 20. The state of North Carolina has decided not to fund the Rural Operating Assistance Program for fiscal year 2021. The reason has not been identified. However, it was determined that the unspent funds from fiscal year 2021 do not have to be returned to the state, but can be kept and rolled over for spending in the current fiscal year. So there's an overall reduction of $166,606. The next item is emergency management. This amendment is for a supplemental grant from the state of North Carolina Department of Public Safety. These funds are for COVID-19 projects related to Homeland Security planning for social distancing and congregate shelters. No county funds are required. I just want to indicate that this budget amendment was budgeted in fiscal year 20, but grant funds weren't received and no funds were spent, so I'm doing a whole new budget amendment for it. It's $12,696 in this current fiscal year. The next item is a budget amendment for fiscal year T2 2020 for Tier 2 grant proceeds from North Carolina Division of Emergency Management for hazardous materials, emergency response planning, training, and related exercises. It's $1,000. Excuse me, no county funds are required. Next item is with federal asset forfeiture funds. This budget amendments to budget fund balance appropriation from federal asset forfeiture funds to be used for supplies, informant funds, and to purchase 4 vehicles, which would be 2 Interceptor SUVs, 1 Ford Fusion, and 1 Ford Explorer for canines. This would include tax and tags and upfitting the vehicle with law enforcement equipment. It's requesting $184,134 out of the fund balance appropriation from federal asset forfeiture funds. No county funds are required. The next item is with the controlled substance state funds. This budget amendments to budget state asset forfeiture funds for the purchase of 2 canines. 1 would be a replacement and 1 additional canine to assist in the narcotics unit. It's requesting $22,630. No county funds are requested. And then the final item I have is also with federal asset forfeiture funds, and this is requesting $20,000. Let me get to my amendment. This budget amendments to budget fund balance appropriation to be used to pay overtime instead of accruing comp time for drug interdiction narcotics officers due to extended hours to continue the mission of reducing drugs, gangs, and guns. And the overtime request also to include to pay detention facility officers overtime instead of accruing comp time due to shortage of staff through September 6, 2020. So requesting $20,000 from federal asset forfeiture funds, and no additional county funds are required.
All right, she just said quite a few things. Any questions from board members on any of these budget amendments?
I make a motion, we approve.
Let me, I'll take that motion just a second.
Okay.
The item on federal asset forfeitures, the $20,000. I'd like to have a personnel discussion in closed session and take action on that one after that discussion, if that is permissible, Mr. Lamb or Mr. Durham.
Permissible.
Okay, so, I'd like
Approve it
to,
all except that one.
all except that one if we could, yes. And that was the one that was laid on your desk, this morning. That wasn't on the agenda. All right, I have a motion to approve the remainder of them. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Budget amendment stand approved. Thank you, Ms. Wood. Next item on the agenda would be, Ms. Leggett, did you need me to pause now or before stated time?
Whenever.
Give me more direction. Do you want me to pause now or as long as I do it by 1 o'clock?
By 1 o'clock.
Okay, thank you.
You can get it done.
Board appointments, item number 18.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The first item that we have is for the Tourism Development Authority. We still need that third member, the collector member. I don't have any information about any nominations.
Correct.
Okay.
I tell you what I found is a lot of those people are currently on furlough. And 3 different ones I looked into were all on furlough, so I don't have any meetings until January, so
Okay.
I'm going to just monitor that one for a little while and see who gets back to work and who's not going to be back to work, rather than appoint somebody that may not be coming back, may
Okay.
not get the job back, unfortunately. Sad situation, but that's just where the industry is right this minute.
Okay. Should I just pull it until we have some information come forward about it?
I'd like for you to keep it on there to
Okay.
remind the board to keep working on it.
Okay.
Being myself primarily.
Okay, all right, will do. The next one is for the Spalding Family Resource Center Board. The term for member Commissioner Lou Richardson is expiring on September the 1st. Mrs. Richardson is eligible, willing, and recommended for another term.
Pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Have a motion
Second.
to approve and a second by Commissioner Outlaw Belfield. Any questions on the motion? Any discussion from anyone other than Ms. Richardson? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries.
Okay, and then the last one is for the item that we mentioned this morning, the Research Triangle Regional Partnership Board of Directors. The recommendation is that we appoint Chairman Robbie Davis and our Economic Development Director Randy Hagee to this board. And then, of course, you heard this morning, there would be a third appointment that this board could make to that board.
And I understood that we wish to have someone from one of our industries fill that position.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Is that right, Mr. Lamb? I think I've been told that. I know we discussed it with one plant manager that didn't feel he had the time to
That's right.
fulfill that, so we're still looking at.
Correct.
Okay, pleasure of the board.
Yeah, question.
Sure.
What's Mr. Lamb's involvement with this board? Other than the fact that Mr. Hagee reports to Mr. Lamb?
I'm going to ask Mr. Lamb to answer that. I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it'd be appropriate for him to have some pretty strong involvement in it.
We have been allocated 3 positions, I believe. One of them, they want the chairman. One, they want the economic developer. And the third one, they have requested a person in industry. So I'm the odd man out. But what I'll do is see if other managers are on this board and get back with you. I don't know that they are or aren't, but I will check on that.
Well, I mean, is it possible you could attend as an ex officio or?
Sure.
I understand the meetings are open.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, they're being done virtually, as I understand.
I just think it's important for you to hear firsthand what this board's got to say as the county manager.
Right.
Okay,
I understand.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not opposed to waiving the chairman's seat to the manager.
No, I think the chairman being involved is an important seat to be involved in.
I'm
but I
not,
just-
I'm not quite up to date, but I just, what memo I've seen about it, that's what they asked for.
I just think you get so much more out of a meeting when you hear it firsthand than when it gets transferred second or third hand.
Yeah, and it'll be easy as long as they're having remote meetings. I'm sure they're all in Wake County or around the district, but I'll be glad to attend as an ex officio.
Thanks, Mr. Outlaw, good point. Calling for a motion for approval for the 2 members we have currently identified.
So moved.
Have a motion by Ms. Richardson, second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Motion carries as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is 19, which is the monthly tax report. Good afternoon, Ms. Sumner.
Good afternoon.
I think that was, I think we all know what that was about.
Yes, sir, and I won't be before you too long.
You take your time. You've
All
earned
right.
it.
The first thing, as you just called up, is the monthly tax report. And as you know, this is provided to keep the board abreast of the actions in the tax collector's office. It's designed to keep the board current. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. However, it is recommended that you accept the report so that it be noted in the minutes.
Okay, so accepted, ma'am.
All right.
You go right ahead with
All
it.
right, the next thing we
20.
have, I think is number 20, the tax refunds. And we did not have any for approval this month.
Right, that was item number 20.
Yes,
and
sir.
we moved to 21.
All right, and then item 21, as described in North Carolina General Statute 105373, the tax collector will submit to the governing body an annual settlement of monies received during the prior fiscal year. So that's what I'd like to do at this time. And this is for tax year 2019, which we just finished, from July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Each year, for 6 consecutive years, we've been fortunate to continue setting a new collection rate record, and I'm pleased to report that this year is no different, as we finished the year with a 99.06 collection rate. This rate does include real estate, personal property, and our motor vehicles that we collect through the tax system. I'd like to just point out that our levy was at $52,816,208.77, which was an increase of $1,561,942.36 from the prior year. Our collections were $52,320,018.60, which was an increase of $1,653,986.24 in payments, more than prior year. We were left with a year-to-date receivables of $496,190.17. So it was less than $500,000 left on that. And the second page, I'd just like to print out Nash County only for all years. We ended at 94.29% with the year-to-date receivables of $3,197,338.07. That included all of our years, the prior years, plus the current year. And that collection rate was up, and that's the trend that we'd like to see, while the, want to see the amount that's owed going down. And also on the next page for prior years, our ending receivable was $2,701,147.90. So we love to see that. What was owed is coming down each year. The total amount of the actual dollars collected, uncollected each year continues to be less than the year before, despite the fact that this portion of the levy is the most difficult to collect. And then I'd also like to just point out our Nash County only for our real estate. We had a levy of $41,857,021.56. Our collections were $41,424,577.14, with a year-to-date receivable of $432,444.42. And we almost hit 99% on that. We ended at 98.97 on that for real estate. For our personal property only for Nash County, our levy was $4,310,113.71. Our collections were $4,246,367.96. We ended with a year-to-date receivable of $63,745.75 and a collection rate of 98.52% on that personal property. One note on the personal property is that we had a significant bankruptcy filing this year from one of our companies, and we also included gap bills, motor vehicle bills, so we had a whole lot of those outstanding this year, so that affected our rate for the personal property. And countywide, which includes not only the county but also the 18 fire districts and 4 towns, our collection rates continue to improve overall. As the year-to-date receivables for 2019 fiscal year ending was $620,516.63, which was down from the prior year at $749,193.42. So each year, our outstanding receivable continues to go down, which is a positive trend. So at this time, I would just like to say that I want to thank the tax office staff for all of their hard work. And I'd like to thank the board for their support, and our county attorney, Mr. Durham, who's helping us with all of our foreclosures. And really, last but not least, the taxpayers of Nash County, because this would not have been accomplished without them making sacrifices. And I know that some of them did make sacrifices to pay their taxes on time. So this is for the Nash County citizens. And that concludes my report. And there are 2 actions that you would need to do. Approve the tax collector report for tax year 09 through 19 for fiscal year July 1, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. And you will also need to recharge the tax collector with the outstanding taxes and responsibility for collections for the tax years 2010 through 2020.
All right.
21. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
21,
yeah,
got it, I got it. You've heard that report, any comments from board members at this time?
Good
Sounds
job.
like a good report.
It's an excellent
Compared to the
report,
situation like we.
right, excellent report,
It's
Mr.
better and
Bellfield.
getting better and better every year.
Yep.
Excellent job
Thank you.
for the staff and you.
Yes, sir, we
Good job.
worked really hard.
Commissioner Combs, did you have something to say?
I just said, good job, thank you.
Amen. On behalf of the whole board, we just thank you for what you've done, and I think it'd be appropriate for the board to give you and your staff a hand at this time.
Thank you.
I'm curious, Ms. Sumner, I know we had to extend your term as interim because of not being able to complete classes because of COVID.
Yes, sir.
Is that still staying like that?
Yes, sir, but we hope to get that test taken soon.
Oh, okay, so it is, you can take it virtually or some way?
Yes.
In other words, you're not gonna run out of time on it, what the board is
No,
asking?
sir. No, sir.
Okay, all right. Anything we can do in that regard, please let us know. And this time then, I would entertain a motion to first approve the report.
I have a motion to approve the report.
Have a motion by Commissioner Bellfield, is there a second? Y'all pausing, have I already done this, Madam Clerk?
No, sir.
Okay, it seems like it. Okay, I have a second by Commissioner Wells. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. That motion carries. And the second one is we are to charge Ms. Sumner again to continue collecting taxes for Nash County in the year she designated.
So moved.
Have a motion, Commissioner Outlaw, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign.
All right.
Motion
Thank you.
carries as well.
Thank you
And
so much.
thank you again on behalf of the board.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda, or excuse me, next to last item on the agenda would be a commissioner report. Any commissioners have anything they wish to say at this time?
I got a couple of things.
Sure,
That I'd
Mr. Outlaw.
like to mention. And unless we opt not to have a mid-month meeting, we have one scheduled in September and November. I have a couple of subjects that I have shared with the Assistant County Manager. I won't bias you with those subjects, but if you have anything you would like to be presented at that mid-month meeting, assuming we have it, then I would appreciate your feedback, as would Ms. Stacy Schatzer. Second thing I wanted to mention is that recently Halifax Road was closed because it was washed out from the weather situations. That road carries about 5,400 cars per day. We had a contact with Gus Tullis through Mr. Lamb. We talked to Mr. Lamb as well. And Mr. Tullis got on that with Bobby Liverman and the other members of the DOT, and in pretty short order, they got that road open temporarily. So it'll have to be closed again for a permanent fix. But it was opened up pretty quick, whereas it was expected to be down, I think I'd be correct in saying, probably for months. But they got it open, and I'm thankful for that. I said that to say this. I have never taken anything to Gus Tullis that he did not respond to me like now, right now. He gets back very quickly on any matter, any situation. He's always very courteous. He just does a great job for the DOT. He is the State Division 4 representative. And unfortunately, he is retired. That's going to be a loss for Nash County. They're going to be big shoes for somebody to fill, but Mr. Chairman, I just think it would be appropriate with everything that Mr. Tullis has done for Nash County, not only as the DOT rep, but otherwise, in his whole life, a servant to the people. I just think it would be appropriate for us to recognize him at our next meeting, possibly with a resolution or something showing our appreciation for everything he's done.
Well said.
I personally, obviously, think a lot of it.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no objection from the board to having staff work on that resolution for us. Seeing none, could we get that taken care of, Mr. Lamb?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Outlaw.
Thank you, sir.
Any other member of the board have anything they wish to bring to us at this time?
I've got a comment.
Please, go ahead.
I would just like to recognize and thank our county staff and the leadership, Mr. Lamb and Mr. Bill Hill with the Health Department for their continued leadership and communication during the COVID outbreak and what y'all are continuing to do to provide communication to our county.
Thank you.
That's well said.
Another very well-said comment, quite appropriate. Other comments from board members?
I have some things that I'm concerned about.
Yes, sir, Mr.
And I'll
Bill.
start one with mental health. I witnessed yesterday a person walking around through the shopping center, we were just talking, and I could see in the way he was acting that some ladies could be frightened and might call the police. And I've seen this fella before, and he, in fact, I believe he's kind of schizophrenic and apparently not taking in medication, and that could cause a situation just like we're experiencing in some of our other areas where police might end up shooting him, and then people started protesting. We have a lot of work, as I see, we need to do rather than reacting to when a situation like that happens. And especially in our African-American communities, we need to start working with our young people to present themselves in a very respectable way that incidents like that won't happen. And no one is going to correct that situation but us. And I see the greatest institution that we have in the community to do that is our churches. And I have started talking to some of them that we don't need to take this like it's one thing to get out there and protest and demonstrate, but what you gonna do to correct the situation? And we need to do that. I see is one thing, I believe Black Lives Matter, but we need to go beyond just printing it out somewhere so somebody could read Black Lives Matter. If they matter, what are the situations that we need to work on? And I welcome any, including white, Asian, Hispanics, all to work along on this. But we need to take lead, make sure that it happens. And I've seen some expenditures, in my opinion, have gone in, and I'm not going to get into describing them, that have gone in the wrong way that could be used to benefit some of the things that I'm talking about today. And I certainly want to see unity, not only here in Nash County, but in the state of North Carolina as well as the United States. And it seems like with this virus, partisan politics has just made it worse. And it's going to take somebody leading this thing on the national level to get it to the point where everybody work together. We have different opinions, but bring those opinions together to make a better life for the people here in North Carolina, in Nash County, and in the state of the United States. That's my take on it, and it really concerns me. And I know some of the things that I have said, some African Americans may not like it because they probably look at it as I'm criticizing. And it's not criticism, it's what can we do beyond what to correct these situations. And I welcome any suggestions to work with us in correcting this, because, and I said this one day when the first situation happened down there in Florida, and I believe I was talking with you, Attorney, and I said it's going to continue. It's not going to stop because of the protest. If these young people keep presenting themselves the way they are, they're going to continue shooting and killing them.
Thank you, Mr. Bellfield.
And we can prevent that by first working with our young people and our young generation and getting them. I've never had any trouble with law enforcement. Never have. My parents taught me how to carry myself. And I never argued with them, nowhere but in court. I had one highway patrolman said to me, gave me a ticket, and I knew it was wrong the way and he said, well, just go on up to the courthouse and pay your fine. And the only thing I said to him was, no, I'll see you in court. And when he got in court, he said, he didn't argue with me and didn't do nothing, so I thought everything was going to be okay. And I won the situation in court. And that's what we got to learn to do. I also witnessed two young black teenagers talking in Rocky Mount, talking real nasty to a police officer. And they were very polite, but I'm going to tell you, the way they were acting, it could have been different. The police, and I commend them, they were very polite with them. When I say young teenagers, they were probably 18 or 19. And what I saw, I know the public had a concern of why the police were checking. So that's my take, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Bellfield. I must say I agree with just about everything, or if not everything you just said, sir. I think, and I'm pleased that this board seems to work together well, even though we may not all agree. Good example is you and Commissioner Outlaw working on this resolution we passed today. There's no reason why everybody shouldn't be able to sit down and come to something that's not going to be on either end. It's not going to be on either political side, but somewhere in the middle, there's always a point where everybody should be able to get to. And we're just going to have to continue to work on that. Any other commissioner with comments? I just had a couple of quick things. I will say the Northern Nash proposed elementary school is moving along quite well. I do get a call from time to time from Oakley Collier or from Shannon Davis asking questions. They pretty much finalized the site plan during the last month, and it is on schedule as far as the plan development to be able to be bid at the time designated. COVID, as Ms. Leggett said, I think the county does a great job. Staff, much better than many counties, how we have kept our citizens informed. I still struggle, though, as to why more of our citizens don't do what they're asked to do. I did attend a function last night, unfortunately, a funeral that had quite a few people there, 120, 140 range, and was quite disturbed when I left at what I saw as it relates to social distancing, mask, and that kind of thing. So we just need to continue the message and everything that we're doing, and hopefully we'll just pick up a few every week that will comply with it, because I don't know that we're going to ever turn this thing around if we don't get more of our citizens doing the very simple three things that we've asked them to do. I did talk to Mr. Hill about that last night when I got home. It's something that he's going to look into for us. Another question, Mr. Lamb, has come up. I've had several calls, as well as some other commissioners, possibly Commissioner Outlaw, from citizens asking about the cleanup of the proposed gas line path. All the timbers that are out there and so forth. We got some pretty unsightly areas in the county, or some in my district, and the real question from the citizens is what's going to happen to that. I would think that the principals, Duke and Dominion, are going to eventually come back and clean those areas up, remove the timbers, but could we ask you to contact our representatives or whoever the lead person is on that gas line and see what the intent is and maybe what the schedule is to return it back to a normal condition? Because many times it comes right up to some heavily traveled right-of-ways.
We will do that. There is one little kink in that 30 minutes after Dominion announced they were abandoning the project, they sold their entire natural gas business worth about $10 billion to Warren Buffett. So I'm not sure.
I realize that, but we should be able to contact Dominion and Duke,
We will.
I hope.
We will. See if they'll do what they can do.
Right. I mean, just an update, so we will have something we can tell our citizens as they call, because I think I've had about 7 calls so far about it. Some of it is people that sold them the land, but most of them are just people that are riding by, because it's not getting cut, it's just getting more unsightly every week as we go by. I know y'all have worked your plan out on distributing the COVID funds. No other action this board need to take. You've got full direction on that.
Right. We submitted, I believe, by the 20th, our latest plan. Ms. Wood may be able to talk more about it, but it is amendable at any time. We have sent out letters to the municipalities, I believe, and told them their share. We did a base of 20,000, and then the rest based on per capita for each of the municipalities.
Okay. Thank you on that. And I'll normally give a report on new housing starts. I'm going to forego that. They're still looking real good. I'll just say that, and I'll turn it over to you for the second time.
Yeah, they really did look good, the new housing starts. Just a brief revenue update requested by the board. We did have a great June 12th month sales tax of 1.47. Ended up being about $800,000 over budget for the year to go with our overage for real property. In a normal year, we would have been adding to our fund balance. However, the board's commitment to broadband during the year, we did increase the fund balance appropriated $1.2 million for the broadband phase 2. We also, instead of financing some ambulance remounts, we paid out a fund balance, and also spent about quite a bit of money on the detention center. So it appears that we're going to go in the hole for the year once the audit comes out around 1.0 to 1.1 million to the red, which again, except for broadband and other things, we really did have a good year in revenues compared to past years. Where we were hurt were minor revenues, and we did go down on the ambulances revenues, but for the most part, our revenues were really high. Regarding the salaries for our employees, we are monitoring our lapsed salaries and benefits and plan to calculate those over a 12-month period so that we can provide some kind of COLA for our employees. Would like to mention Carolyn Mingy is retiring after many years with the county. She is our deputy clerk to the board, and we will be at the next meeting recommending someone to the board to designate as the deputy clerk to the board. But of course, we've got the best clerk in the state, and I don't know when we've ever needed Carolyn to do a whole lot, but thank you for all you do.
Amen.
Amen.
We have met with Ed with the soil and water, Edward, and we're asking him to make recommendations to us that we will bring to y'all to form a stream cleaning / mosquito control board. And if you have any recommendations for such a board, please pass them on to Stacy and I. As they already mentioned, we are having a virtual EOC open today for the storm. Concerning the Gateway Partnership Building, the Board of Elections has requested that they be allowed to use that building for early voting and day of election voting. Where they normally vote is, of course, Braswell. There's no ingress and egress. It's all the same door. In the partnership building, guess we shouldn't call it the Gateway Partnership Building, the county building. They have multiple entrances and exits, so people won't have to be next to one another going in and out, and it will also give the workers more room to be socially distancing, and so I've tended, unless there's objection, I have allowed the Board of Elections to do that, and they voted Wednesday, I believe, to pursue that.
I happened to go to that meeting, and they did vote unanimously to move it across the street.
Great. And we may, at least on election day, may need to have some people helping people walk across the street, stopping traffic, because there's limited parking at that building, though there is quite a bit of parking, but on election day, I suspect a lot of people will be parking at the library and walking across the street, so we will deal with that issue. We have met with the district attorney's office, and they are interested in utilizing that building. They have offices at Cokie Road, also in the 3 counties. They would combine their administrative offices. The District Attorney Evans would have an office there, support staff, and certain assistant district attorneys. For the record, my wife will not be going there. She actually will be retiring in December, and again for the second time. And if there's no objection or no discussion necessary, we will allocate that property to the district attorney's office. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Seems like a good use for building. I'm just wondering, do we still maintain that building, I think, do we not?
Just like any building we provide for the court system, we are responsible for the maintenance, and they provide the IT, and we pretty much provide everything else.
I know we currently pay some funds for the judicial center. Will we be able to allot those funds to that, since we'd be participating in providing judicial services in Rocky Mount?
That will be negotiated. I believe it's $1,200 a month. $1,400 a month that we're currently paying. We've got juvenile probation there. They at one time said they were going to decentralize to the 3 counties with the new law for 18-year-olds being juvenile, 17-year-olds being juvenile. But apparently what I've heard is they're going to stay right where they are, so.
Well, if you just report to the board.
Yeah, we will.
I was just thinking out loud, really.
Yeah. Certainly, given our commitment to providing space for 3 counties in the district attorney's office, and they will be, it will be by appointment only in that building, so we won't need to provide any security, which is a good thing. And so, yeah, I will check into that.
Okay, thanks.
I believe that's all I have in open session.
All right, anything else from board members? If not, we do have a need for a closed session. We will be covering economic development, matter of attorney-client privileges, and a personnel, or maybe 2 personnel items as well. And we would report back in open session after closed session of any action that needed to be taken because of closed session. We would do it in open session afterwards. With that said, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Combs. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. We will go into closed session at this time.